What's the place developers go to when they have a problem and they need other people to sympathize? You thought Stack Overflow? Think again. We go to Reddit. That's a place where we go and console with others, learn about life, and a lot of us use Reddit on a regular basis. Now, in this video, we're going to be building Reddit by ourselves with our own bare hands and building it from scratch. This Reddit is going to be probably the best Reddit that exists on the internet. First of all, the front end is absolutely immaculate. It's beautiful. And you also have a lot of functionality. For example, you can log in with Google authentication inside of this Reddit. You'll be able to create a new post. You'll be able to see all the posts that are already there. You'll be able to comment on a post. You'll be able to upvote or downvote a post, all right? And all of this, we're also going to be using a really nice tech stack. So the tech stack for this build is going to be NextJS. We're going to be using Tailwind CSS for styling, and we're going to be actually using Supabase for the backend. This was something that was actually really interesting to me, this tech stack, and especially like using Supabase for the backend. That's something I wanted to do for a while. And in this video, we'll get to do that and build it. Now, if you're ready to start coding this bad boy up, make sure to smash that like button. So this video just goes out to as many people as possible. By the way, if you don't know me, I'm Rafik Hazi, the CEO and founder of Clever Programmer. I've been coding for nearly a decade and I've helped millions of people learn how to code. With that said, let's jump right into it. All right, let's go ahead and demo this app now. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit sign in with Google. I'm gonna choose my email. And once I'm in, look at this, how beautiful this is. I have my header. When I hover over all of these icons in my header, they look absolutely gorgeous. I can go into the search and type. And then when I scroll down here, I have all of my posts. And I can go into any of them, or if I want, I can actually create a new post as well. So let's say we go into this post. This is a new post, or free JavaScript course. So let's go into this post right here. And you can see we even have a thread, comments. So I could actually say, this is awesome. Okay, let's hit comment. You get a nice little loading screen. And now this is awesome is there. So this is actually being stored in our backend and then shown up on our front end. And it's super fast, as you can see. So now let's go ahead and go back to the home page, or you could just hit the Reddit logo. That'll bring you back. And here I'm going to go ahead and let's say I really like a post, right? One of these posts right here, how to build a Reddit clone with NextJS. I can go ahead and upvote it. And you saw that it upvoted it. And let's say Replit is cool. Let's upvote it. Or maybe best dev community. Let's downvote. And boom, look at that. And there's something really freaking cool that's happening that I really want to show you. And we're using something called SWR hooks in React. And they are so powerful than just the regular way you fetch data. And I'll show you them if you've never experienced them before. But what's amazing is like, we're pulling all of this from Supabase and we're not using its real-time functionality. So think about it. How come when I hit up, after a second or two, it automatically turns it to a 3? How's that happening? It's like almost doing it real time. However, it's a Postgres database on Supabase, and we're almost getting this real-time experience of when I downvote or upvote, things change dynamically. So there's some magic that we're doing on client side that I'm really excited for you to see, and how we're doing like revalidation and caching, and it's all happening with one line of code. So it's nothing actually complicated either. And just so you can have a roadmap for this build and how we're going to go through this is the header and banner. This stuff we make so much at Clever Programmer. And if you ever watch any of my videos, that we're not going to be making the header together, the banner, or this guy or this guy. We're going to be doing the interesting parts together in this build. So I'm going to be just giving away the header. I'm going to be giving you the about, component, the banner component. I'll just be giving away all of these components to you. And then we're going to actually start from the more interesting parts of getting this set up and then getting the database to start working and then being able to add comments and liking posts and disliking posts and authenticating and all of that good stuff. Okay, so we're going to start from there. Now, if you want to actually follow along and you want access to the code and to build on top of it, you're going to need to fork this REPL. And it's going to be at the link join.replit.com/cp-reddit. Okay, so make sure you click that Once you go to that link, it'll bring you to this page essentially, which is going to be a Reddit starter right here. Okay. So I'm going to be sending you to the Reddit starter. Why? Because the Reddit starter will have the header component, the banner component, the about.js component. Yeah, it'll essentially have all of the components that you need and all of the styling. It'll have NextJS template already ready to go. It'll also have Tailwind temp ready to go, and it'll have TypeScript enabled, even though we won't really be using TypeScript, but like all of that will come out of the box and be ready to go if you just fork this and build on top of this. That's what's really nice about REPL and Replit, because it allows you to do that. Now, if you want to do this, why I say fork this in all caps is make sure you fork it. Otherwise, you won't be able to run your own code or make your own changes. So just make sure you go ahead and say fork REPL. And once you fork it, you can actually then get started coding on it. Now that you've forked this, I am going to simply walk you through what you're basically looking at here. Here's what I want you to do. On the right-hand side, choose shell. And all I want you to do right now is just do yarn dev. So this is going to be really cool because a bunch of the app is already up and running. And then hit that button right there so it opens your app up in a whole new tab. So I'm going to hit that. And let's wait for this to render and reload. There we go. So this should already be up and running for you. Just like I said, we've already given you the header. We have given you the banner. We've given you, the banner is like this whole thing. We've given you this about component, and then this create a new post component. Okay. So if we go to our app right now, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close this for now. And I just opened up a new Chrome tab here, like literally a new Chrome window. So I could just put that here so I could see my app the entire time I'm working on it. Okay. And let's just take a look at what you've been provided with already. Okay. So on the left-hand side, I have components. And in components, you're given a couple of components. So for example, you're given a header component, and that's that guy right there. Okay, you're given a feed component, which essentially will show this, gives you the ability to actually create a new post. And when we retrieve the post from our database, in the feed is where all of the other posts will also show up. Okay, so that's what this one is called, the feed. The community component page that you have, this has a couple of components like the about component. So the about component is this guy right over here on the right-hand side, right? With the join button at the bottom. And then of course, in the community is also the banner, which is that guy right there. Okay. So now just to play around with these and just to get comfortable in this new project, I'm going to show you where you can go and change things. So in pages, just go into index.tsx. And by the way, don't let TSX freak you out. This app is TypeScript enabled. However, you can literally just write regular JavaScript code and it works totally fine. So we're not really going to be using it like a TypeScript file. We're essentially just going to be using JavaScript code in here. Okay. But I'll explain why we chose a TypeScript template as well. So give me 1 second. But if you're in here and you have header, just go ahead and comment it out, okay? Or just delete it and watch what happens. So if I delete header, just so you can get a feel for the app, look at that. That is gone completely, okay? Now bring it back and it's placed there beautifully, okay? When you hover, it highlights all of that functionality. If you're like, hey, what's the banner exactly? Well, just comment it out or delete it and watch what happens. The whole banner is gone, okay? If you're like, hey, what's this create post component? I imagine you might have a feeling that it's this. Just go ahead and test it out. Delete this and watch what happens. And when I delete it, it's gone. All right. So those are the components. If I remove about component and I go full screen, you'll see this about component will vanish. Okay, let's hit Command Z and bring that back, or Control Z if you're on Windows to undo. And there we go. Our about component is back. So that's a little bit about how the app is structured right now. We've given you some of the front end. That way we can get to the more interesting parts of the code. And I just want to familiarize you with everything you have. So you have the downvote icon, the upvote icon. So that's going to be in the common. Why it's in the common is because it's being used in a lot of different pages and places. So you'll use upvote and downvote pretty much throughout the entire app. Whereas the banner is really only used on the front page. Whoops. Okay, didn't mean to move community. We just moved community back in. These are really the 4 folders, but really they're like, think of it like 3 or 4 components that we've given you. So that's already there. In assets, you have some icons and some loading animations. So those are also handed over to you. And let me see. The other things that you have to know about are just a few other things. So for example, in styles for Tailwind CSS, we've given you this. We've made all of the text white for you already because every place you're going to type, we need you to type white text. So boom, like that. That's white text. So that's already white. We have set up Tailwind. Tailwind is already installed as well. So if you actually look inside of your package.json, it already has all the Tailwind stuff you need, like Tailwind CSS, Post CSS, and the auto prefixer. Okay, so let's go back. So Tailwind is installed. We have the Tailwind config file for you ready to go, the Post CSS file ready to go, and then TypeScript is enabled, right? So this is the TS config, and TypeScript is ready to go. So if you wanted to code it up in TypeScript, you can. If you don't want to, that's totally okay. Again, like I told you, we're not really using a lot of the TypeScript functionality, which is typecasting or type checking and all of that. But here's where it could be helpful. So let's go to index.tsx. So in index.tsx page, right? If you can change it to essentially index.js and your code should pretty much still run fine. But the cool thing about TypeScript that I really like, so here's just one TypeScript thing that you have to know. You might be wondering, hey, what's this home component? Like, why I have to write this? This is weird. This is the same thing as writing this, but in TypeScript, we're just saying that the type of this component is, this is a next page. And so we can actually import that and say that here. So if somebody looks at it who's never really written TypeScript, next code or whatever, they could look at it and go, oh, the type of home is not a regular function. Home is a next page component. Like this is something special. So they would know right away. So it makes your life easier. So yeah, you could just leave that here. You don't really need to remove that. Okay. And then the other benefit of TypeScript is when you have errors and you're defining something that doesn't really exist, it will catch it for you ahead of time. What that basically means is you won't have to really worry about running your code and then waiting for the command line to crash and then you finding out what the error is. TypeScript oftentimes will test everything for you already and tell you the errors before runtime. That way you can catch the errors a lot faster and then debug them a lot faster. So that's another thing that I really like about TypeScript. So that's why we've enabled it in this project. Okay. So that's the overall project. Those are all the things that you need to know before we continue. Okay. And by this point, you should have this much of Reddit up and running already, which is pretty exciting, right? Because you have a bunch of stuff functioning already. Next up, what we're going to be working on is building out our post component and then building out a feed component that can show all of our posts. So I'm excited to work with you on that. All right, so the component now we're going to work on is our post component. And let me tell you what posts will actually look like. So this is the final version of the app. Okay, let's actually open it up right here. I'll close it from this. Boom. Okay, so this is currently what the post component looks like. Okay, this one right here. So this is going to be our post.js component. Whoops, let's make a little error and we'll say post.js. And this component has a couple of different parts. Like for example, we have our votes. We have the info part about the author and everything. Okay. And then we have our actions right here. Actions, right? Actions. This is going to be the info. And then this part is like vote. So those are going to be like the subcomponents. So think of these each like a component. Actions as a component. Votes as a subcomponent. Okay. So those are going to be the subcomponents of like post. Now we're going to make these ones, the ones I'm going to make myself a little bit smaller so I don't get in the way of anything. All right. So we're going to basically make the post component without info, actions, and vote first. So we're going to not have this first. And then we're going to go ahead and add the subcomponents, and it's going to look just like this. It's going to look super nice. Okay. So let's get started on that. So first things first, what I need to do is in my common, I need to have a new file, and this file over here is going to be called post.js. Okay, and I'll put myself bottom for now. All right, so post.js. Now inside of this file, we're gonna start making this post component. So let's go ahead and go const post. And for now, we'll just say return an h1 that says post. So export default post. And then we need this to show up. So the question is, where do we have it show up? Now what we want to do is inside of our feed, we want to create a new file. This will be index.js, and this will be the feed file. Okay, you'll be able to import it by just saying, /feed. So this is going to be the main file basically. And how you should read this. So for example, like if you're in header, right? And you're like in header and you're like, yeah, I see these 4 components. What the hell's going on? The way I read this is I go, this is actually the header component. This is the main header. Imagine this as header.js. This is the actual header component. And then these are actually the subcomponents that are required to finish building this header. Okay, that's really what's happening. And I promise you, if you go in index, you'll see that all of those are being somehow or another used. Right? So inside of feed, this is the actual feed component. This is a main component. This is a subcomponent of feed. And you could probably tell that already, right? Because this is just one part of the feed. But then the other part of the feed is going to be all the other posts that are going to be underneath this. For example, if I go to the final working version of the app and let's hit refresh, boom, this is the feed, right? All of these other posts. Okay, so inside of my index of my feed, I need to just make sure that create post and everything is showing up. And I want to make sure that my post is showing up, the post component I just made. So the post component is inside of common. Why is it inside of common? Because there's going to be multiple pages where that post component is shown. For example, if I go to the final version of the app, the post component is showing up here. But when I click and go completely inside, the post component is also showing up over here. So that's why we put it in common. So let's go ahead and import our post component from common post. And then the next thing we're going to do is going to be the feed component. And we're just going to go ahead and say return post. Okay, so now feed should show essentially one post. And now we want to make sure that the feed is showing up on our home page. So let's go to pages. Let's go to index.tsx, our main. And right underneath create post, I want feed to show up. It's going to error out, obviously, because we haven't imported it yet. So we're going to say import feed from, and we're going to say components/feed. That is it. You don't have to even say /index.js. Okay, that's the cool part about naming it like this. We're just getting feed from this right here. Okay, so it reads really nicely too. Let's refresh. Okay, maybe we forgot to export. This is a really helpful error message that is showing up here. And it says, it's possible that you might have mixed up default and named imports, or you likely forgot to export your component. And that's actually what happened. So that's a very nice error message. So let's go back to our feed, index.js, and let's go ahead and say export default feed. Let's refresh and see it now. And there we go. Our post component is showing up. Now we just got to go ahead and knock it out. So I'm going to command click into the post component. And if it's ever being buggy or anything, you can just kill this right over here. And you can also actually in here, right? If it ever dies or crashes, you could kill it in the shell and then just like npm dev it again or yarn dev it again and it'll start. Okay, cool. So now let's go inside of our post component inside of common, right? We have our post component and we'll actually start building out our post component now. So my post component needs a couple of things. First of all, we need to wrap it in a parent div, so then we can actually add multiple. Now for H1, really H1 is going to be where my title for the post is going to go. So let's go ahead and, how to build that. Let's grab that title. Let's go back and I'm going to boom. How to build a Reddit clone with NextJS. Okay, so that's going to be the title part. So we're good there. Let me make this a little bit bigger and I'll make this a little bit smaller. Great. So we're good with this first title. Okay, so this is going to be our title. And let's give it a class name afterwards. Okay, so title. Then the next thing we're going to have is our content. So this is where our content is going to go. So this is, let's see if we have some content here. We do. I'm going to copy this content and I'm going to paste it. There we go. That's our content. And then we need, that's pretty much in terms of like what it will be without any of our other components, subcomponents like the info component I was talking about earlier, the actions component, or the vote component. This is pretty much all it's really going to be like. Now to design it, we need to make it look better, right? So what we need to do is we need to actually add a wrapper around this entire thing. Okay, and we need to actually create a styling for post. So let's go ahead and create a styling for post. So let's turn it into a div and we'll say div right here. Okay, and the class name we'll give it will be style.post. Okay, and now what we'll have to do is we'll have to actually create that style. So we're going to say const style. Okay, and then in here, I'm going to create a style for post. And so the styling we're going to have for this is when we're going to make it flex enabled in column. We'll give it a little space and a cursor pointer when you hover over it. All right. So if I full screen this, now it's starting to look a lot more like an actual post. Okay. Now the next thing we need to do is I need to actually add this in a wrapper. So I'm going to go ahead and say style.wrapper and let's end this div right here. Okay. And basically what I'm going to do, and by the way, if it ever is slowing down on you or crashing on you or whatever, just wait. All right. Or if you're ever about to refresh and this thing pops up that says changes you made may not be saved. In that case, either wait for that or just Command A, Command C, Control A, Control C if you're on Windows, copy everything that you have in this file, then refresh. And that way, if you lose any data or anything goes missing, you can just Command A, Command V over that, meaning like you could just select everything and paste whatever you had copied earlier. That way you don't like lose anything. So just keep copy once in a while. It's a good idea. That way you have everything saved. Okay, so I'm going to go here and I just need to add a wrapper now and create the styling for it. So let's go ahead and create the styling for my wrapper and we're going to make it flex enabled. We're going to add a little spacing horizontally. We're going to make it rounded. Okay, so let's take a look what it looks like right now. We're not able to really see it too much. Let's give a background color. Okay, and we're going to give a background color of like that grayish color. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, there we go. So now we have the little grayish color in the back. And the next thing I'm going to do here is we're going to add a padding to this. Okay, so the padding makes it look a little bit better. And then outside of the padding, what I want to do is give it a border, and then we're going to give it a specific border color. And it's going to be 343536 for the border color. Okay, so now that's done. Okay, this is how our post should look like. So that part is done. Now we need to style the title. So our title should be highlighted and look different than it is right now. So we need to create styling for our title. I'm going to say class name. And we're going to say style.title, or you can say post title. Okay, and then we're going to go here. We're going to say post title. And for post title, what I want to do is go, hey, make sure the text is large. So you should see the text become a lot bigger now. I want to go font medium. And then for the text color, I want it to be this specific color over here. It says dad. Love that. Okay, so now our text is there. It's popping out a little bit. It's a little bit bigger. Okay. And for post content, we're going to give it pretty similar styling to this. So I'm going to say post content. For text though, I'm going to say small. Font will go light. And then for color, we're going to actually give it the same color, except here's what we're going to do. I'm going to say /80 on this. Now let's go ahead and add that for post content. So we're going to say class name, style, dot post content. We'll add that style. style. Oh yeah, just kill that bracket because I added a bracket there by mistake. And there we go. Okay. So now posts are looking very good, but they don't look like posts completely right now. And the reason for that is because you don't have the vote buttons, right? You don't have the action buttons at the bottom that show how many comments there are. And you don't have this info that says posted by David, blah, blah, blah. So now we're going to go ahead and make the subcomponents that are required for this. Now we're going to go ahead and make the post subcomponents, action, info, and vote. Let's start off with vote. So I'm going to go ahead inside of my feed folder, and inside of the feed, we're going to create a new file, and it's going to be called vote.js. Now, obviously, since it's going to be that, I'm going to say vote const, and we're going to say return, and I'll make an empty, let's just make a div here because we know we're going to need a div at some point. And then I'm going to go here and just say vote and say export default vote. Go back to index here, import it in here. So I'm going to say import vote from vote, and then just wrap it in an empty div for now. Okay. And actually, maybe instead of feed, we should actually give vote to post, not feed. Feed is fine for now. So let's go inside of our post component, inside of common, and let's give this guy vote. So let's go import vote from, and we'll go out, we'll go into feed, and we'll go and grab vote. Import vote from feed vote, perfect. And then we'll have vote show up right above the post. So let's go right here, and I'll go ahead and say vote, just leave it like this for now. Okay, so this is what you should be seeing on your screen. You should have the word vote pop up. Let me leave the code like that. Go here for now. Zoom out just a little bit so it looks more normal. Perfect. Now let's go back to vote inside of feed, and let's remove this H1. We're going to replace this with a button instead. And in this button, we're actually going to put an upvote icon. So I'm going to say not that, but upvote icon. All right. So that means we have to import upvote icon from common upvote icon.js. So I'm going to say from, and we'll back up. We'll go inside of common, and we'll say upvote icon just like that. Okay. So now we have access to it. Okay. And now it's saying, hey, inside of somewhere, you likely forgot to hit export. So it's possible in our upvote. Okay. So it's a named component. So see, the error also says you might have mixed up default and named imports. So this is a named import and not a default import. What basically means is you have to just put these squigglies around it. You're destructuring it from it. There we go. And now you can actually see the upvote icon is showing up right over here. Now all we need is another button that just has a downvote icon. So I'm going to go copy this. Let's paste it, and let's replace this with down, right? That's downvote icon. Let's copy this line here. Let's paste it, and let's change this word as well to down. Okay. And let's rename this to downvote icon as well. And there you have it. We now have upvote icon, and we have a downvote icon. Now, the next thing we need is if we go to the final version of the app, you can see that each vote that you see here has a number in between the buttons. So in between the buttons, I need to have my number. So I'm going to create a p tag here. And this p tag will be the number of votes. So for now, we'll just say 10 minus 5. Let's just write some JavaScript here, and we'll say 10 minus 5 votes. Okay. And this, why I'm writing this here and leaving it like this is because in future, this will be upvotes minus downvotes, and you'll have that number. Now the 5 is looking a little bit crooked, doesn't look right. So we're going to go ahead and create a styling for this. So let's go ahead and say const style. And this style is going to be called votes, just like this. And for this styling, what I'm going to say is, hey, give me padding from the top. So let's see that. Beautiful. Make the text extra small. Okay. And let's add the styling so we can actually see it as it's happening real time. So I'm going to say class name style.votes. So you can see the text just turned like super small. Let's make the font bold and the text white. Great. Now the next styling we're going to need is a wrapper, because right now these things aren't like aligned the right way, and they should be in a flex box, in a flex column, because they're going up and down like this, right? That's why you need a column. And everything should also be in the center. So we're going to create a wrapper. We're going to create a wrapper here. So we're going to say class name style.wrapper. And for the wrapper, I'm going to make it flex column, and let's go item center. And there you have it. Now the 5 shows up right in the middle, exactly like how we want it to show up. Okay. And we can even make it like add a little bit more dummy data, and we could say upvotes equals 10, const downvotes equals 5. And we could just say upvotes minus downvotes. Okay. And there you go. So posts can have negative votes as well. So that's why we're not doing a negative check. It's totally fine to have negative votes. So there you go. So now our vote subcomponent is completely done. Now we're going to work on our next subcomponent, which is going to be the action subcomponent. So let's go ahead and do that. So first step is going to be what? You tell me. Okay, let's do this together. So what's the first step going to be? If I have this feed over here, yes, inside of this folder, I need to create a new file, right? And that file is going to be called actions.js. What's the first thing I'm going to do here? You know, I want you to start getting some practice mentally as you do this with me. What's the first thing we're going to do here? Well, we're going to write the component. So I'm going to say const actions, and then we'll just return something. So we'll make a div. We'll just add an H1 in there that says actions, and then we'll hit export default actions. Now, the next thing we need to do is make sure it shows up inside of our index.js, okay, aka our feed component, or sorry, in our post component, actually. We need to make sure it's showing up in our post component. So let's go to our post component in common. I'll just open up a new tab here, and we need to just import it. So I'll copy this, paste, change this to actions, and change this to actions. So now we're importing it. And now where will actions go is my question to you. Will actions go at the top, in the middle, at the bottom, right? Actions, just so you're clear, actions are these guys right over here. The comments, all of that. So where will they go? Exactly. They're going to go at the bottom. So if they're going to go at the bottom, then pretty much all the way at the bottom right here is where we need to add our actions as a self-closing tag. Okay. And our actions are actually showing up. So that is wonderful. Let's go back to our actions and finish out building this. Okay. First, let's take a look at actions and just see, and we can understand, right? So we have these 3 things right here. Now, first things I see is, to me, this is a flex. This is not a flex column, right? This is a straight up flex row. So I see that we have Flexbox enabled. The next thing I see is, I'm sure we're going to need to work with the text color. So we're probably going to have to do something with the text color at some point. Right? That's the next thing I notice. The other thing I notice is the font size is kind of either regular or small. So that's another thing. We have 3 icons here. So there's probably going to be some importing icon action happening. Okay. And, the left icon is called the annotation icon. Then we have the gift icon, and then we have that share looking icon. So those are going to be the 3 icons that we're going to be using here. And so I feel like we should have a pretty good grasp of what's happening. Now, this is usually pulling data dynamically, but for now, ours will just be pulling data in a dummy way. Okay, so let's go back. Now that we have the lay of the land and what we're doing, I'm going to start off with importing the icons first, just because I know that that's something we're going to have to do. So let's start off with that. All right, so let's go over here, and I'm going to import all these icons. We're going to say import annotation icon. Close this tab right here, icon, gift icon, and share icon. And we will get this from hero icons react-outline. Now, if we don't have hero icons installed, here's what I want you to do. just copy from here, from the @ sign to the word React where it ends. Let's copy it. Let's go to our shell and simply let's do yarn add, and we'll paste that @heroicons/React. And that should install those icons so that we have access to them. Okay. Now let's continue working on our app while that's installing. So the next thing I have to do is actually just get those icons to show up. All right. So let's put an annotation icon right here. So I'll say annotation icon. Okay. The next icon that I need to show is gift icon. And then the next icon that I need to show is share icon. All right. Let's see where our install is at. Our install is almost completed. It's 281 out of 283. It's like more than 99.9% completed. Okay. And now if we go back to our app, yay, look at that. Our icons are showing up. Let's go, baby. Now our icons are showing up, and that's great. But what's the problem here? The problem that we're actually having here is these icons are massive. So we need to actually make sure that these icons are short, small, so we can see them, which is why we'll need styling. So let's style the icons. I'm going to give this icon a style of icon. And we'll just do the same thing for all the other ones. And then let's create this styling. So we'll say const style, and I'll say icon. And the icon styling I want is height is 4 and width is 4. So just, hey, chill them out, make them small so they're not massive. There we go. So our icons are now added. Perfect. Very good. Now, remember I said we need them to be in some kind of flex. Well, we need an icon container that can do that. So let's create another div here. And this div will serve as, so we'll call this div and we'll say class name is style.icon container. Okay. And I'll just tab these bad boys right here and we'll say div class, we'll just end this. Okay. So now icon container has 3 icons, and we're just going to style our icon container with obviously a flex. So flex alone should help it a lot. Now we want to make sure everything is nicely and center aligned and it looks normal. Very good. We want to give everything some breathing room on the x-axis. So let's give it a little bit of spacing in between. And remember what we said, text color is going to be a thing, right? So let's give it a text color of 818384. So it's going to be like this grayish, dark grayish color. Okay. What we're going to do is put actually every single icon in an icon container instead of the whole thing in an icon container. So let's go ahead and do that. Put this in an icon container. Okay. Let's put that guy in an icon container and this guy in an icon container. And then let's just go ahead and close out these divs. Boom. Okay. So now all of them are in an icon container. Okay. And now what we want to do is what this will allow us to do is now I can actually add span text over here. Okay. And in that span tag, I can just put, say, hey, 19 comments. Okay. So now you'll see it'll say 19 comments. Let's add a span tag here for all of them. So the next one will say just the word awards. And then this one at the end here will simply say shares or share. There we go. All right. And now we're going to add a wrapper around everything, and that'll be flex enabled as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to give it a class name style.wrapper. And up here, I'm going to say wrapper. Let's make it flex enabled. So that alone will solve a lot of problems. We'll center everything. So now things are looking really good, as you can see, right? Boom. And after item center, I'm going to say space X4. So let's give quite a bit of space in between each single item. And then we're going to give a padding of 2. Perfect. And now for all of these span text that we have, let's make them like really small text. Okay, so we can actually just go ahead and say class name. And for these, we can just inline style this. So I can say text S. That's just saying, hey, make the text extra small, right? And then we can just grab that. We can do that here as well and do that here as well. So now all of those texts will just be extra small. And there we have it. Awesome. Now, if I look at this, our component is looking beautiful, right? There's only really just one part left. Let's take a look at, look at that. That is looking gorgeous, that component right there. And there's only one part left, which is the author part. If I go to our app right here, you can see it says posted by David Ricosi, right? So that info is the part that we're now going to actually create and finish. So I'm going to create a new component. It's going to be called info.js. And if we try to understand info.js and I look at this here, I have a few things, right? Posted by who, the date. So when we're creating the raw dummy data for this, that should honestly be pretty simple. And then of course we have the author here with the logo of the author. So let's just go here and let's fully try to understand this. So here's the component info. Here are the elements we have. So that way we don't get surprised. We need a image. Okay, this is going to be the logo. So we know we're going to be using an image component in here. Then we have text that's maybe bold. Maybe, I think it's bold. Okay. Or maybe just really white text. And then we have just more text that says the name of the person who posted it. And then we have a date. But from a front-end perspective right now with no data, like this is just text. And this is just text too. So this part over here should be really straightforward to work on. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say const info. I will say return. We'll create a div. And inside of this div, I'm going to go ahead and just say h1 hello or info rather. And we'll say export default info. Now info should go kind of at the top. So if I go to our post component, we're going to put info a little bit higher than where we put actions. In our case, we'll put it right above this H1 here. So I'm going to say info, close it, and then let's import it here. So let's go info, let's go info, and let's go back to our app. And there we go. Info is now showing up. Now inside of info, make it a little bit smaller. Okay. Now let's go inside of info. So I'm going to close this and info is open as a tab here. Let's just bring in that logo right away. So I'm going to use a image tag. Okay. And let's make it self-closing. Source is going to be the source that I'm actually going to paste. You can actually just pause the screen and try to copy it or just post a different logo. You don't need to post you don't need to post Clever Programmer logo. And then all we need to do is we just need to style this. So that will actually make it smaller. So let's go ahead and create a styling for this now. So I'll say const style, and then we'll say styling for our profile pic, and we'll just make height 4, h4, and width 4, and then we're going to make it rounded full. So it's going to be a rounded photo, and let's give it a class name as well. So let's go class name, and I'll say style.profile pic. Okay, and now it should become tiny. And already look at our post component is looking so beautiful already. So that's exciting. Now the next thing we need after this, let's go to our main app and let's see what do we need after is the name, the author name. So we just say r/ whatever the author name is. So let's go ahead and do that. So I got my image part done. That's very good. Now I'm going to get outside of my image part. Okay. And the next thing I need is the author name. So I'm going to say div, and inside of this div, we'll put our author name. So actually I can probably just put that on one line, and we can say r/clever programmer in this case. Okay, there we go. We got r/clever programmer. What's the next thing that we need? Well, the next thing that we need is the date, the title, and then the date. Okay. So I'm going to have a div that's just going to have that dot in. So if you want to do this dot, I believe it's option 8 on Mac, and then on Windows, I'm not sure how to do the dot. So just copy the dot from somewhere or Google it and then copy it from there. And then we're going to have and then basically all I want to basically say here is I want to have a span tag, and I want to say posted by Rafik Kazi, okay, or Clever Programmer or whatever. Say posted by Clever Programmer. Now let's just wrap this whole thing in a flex so we can see it the right way, going in a row rather than how it is right now. So yeah, so let's go ahead and put a wrapper around it. So let's go and say class name style.wrapper. And I'll go here. And for the wrapper, what I want is something simple. I want, of course, just make it flex enabled for now. There we go. And let's center align everything. Okay, let's give some proper spacing between everything and make the text size extra small there. Okay, and there we go. All right, and then let's go ahead and give it a grayish color. So I'm gonna go ahead here and say 818.384. Okay, now one bug you might have noticed already is how come I changed the color of this to gray, but it didn't change actually. What's happening is if we go to our Tailwind, our global style file, which is our tailwind.css, that has where it says, hey, make the color white for all text. So we should just go ahead and remove that. And once you remove it, you're gonna notice that this is gonna turn gray, which actually it should, because this is like too bright white. This stuff will turn gray, and then this stuff will turn gray like how it's supposed to. The vote icons will also turn gray. So let's get rid of this here. Let's hit save. And there you go. Now things are how they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to look. Okay, so everything just chilled out a little bit because I feel like it was too strong white and that didn't look good as a design. So I'm glad that we've solved that problem. So let's go back to info. We've added our wrapper and we got our posted by author. Now the only thing left is the date. So we'll make another span tag because we need everything to be in the same line. And this will just be a dot. Okay, we'll put that. And then the thing that we need after that is the date. Okay, so we're going to create another span tag. And this will just be June 15 or June 15, something like that. 3 letters of the month and then the day. And there you go. So let's go back to ours. Yep, like July 13th, June 15th. And it was my birthday yesterday, July 14th. So actually, let's just put that as the date. There we go. July 14th. All right. So now the post component is looking very, very good. We just have to make sure that we have some styling here handled. And let's just create certain containers so we make sure that the styling doesn't get out of whack. So for this image, let's make a container. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and say, let's wrap it up in a div. And I'll say class name will be style.profile pic container. Okay, and then I'll simply say profile pic container. All right, and we will say, make it flex item center. And then we'll give it some space between so there's some breathing room. Okay, that should be that profile pic container. Great, that matches. So now our image is in a nice little container. So that part is done and we're good with that. The next thing that we need to make sure that we're good on is for the clever programmer, that needs to be white. That needs to have a certain styling. So let's put a class name and we'll just say style.tag. Okay, and then we'll create that. So we'll say tag. Tag will be, hey, it's going to be a cursor pointer when you hover over it. Text is going to be extra small. Font is going to be semi-bold. Okay, and then we're going to give it a specific text color. So we're going to say, okay. And then we're going to also give it a certain underline on hover. So hover underline. So now when you hover over it, it has an underline just like how Reddit has it. So that just makes it pop and look really nice. And then the last styling we're going to need is posted by. And this one is going to be fairly simple. We'll just flex everything, center align it, and then give a little bit of spacing in between everything. So let's go to this part. I'm just going to wrap this part in a div. And let's go ahead and wrap it. Boom. Right there. And we'll say class name style.posted by. Okay, perfect. Now it looks beautiful. I mean, like, yeah, this is gorgeous. This is gorgeous. This is very, very nice. And like, it's completely mobile friendly as well. Look at how everything just resizes. The about component shows up or it vanishes depending on the size. So this is beautiful. I mean, it's fully mobile responsive. Okay, great. So with that said, now our post component has all of the subcomponents and they're already made. The vote component, subcomponent, action subcomponent, info subcomponent, and post at this point from a front end perspective is completely done. I'm excited. Let's move on. Now we're going to work on the feed component, which is essentially already made. There's not really that much to do. So let's go inside of our feed folder. And in here, let's go to index.js. All feed is going to do is it's going to loop through and just show multiple posts. Okay. So right now we don't really have that many posts, but we'll actually just create a dummy variable here called posts. And I'm just really not even going to put much in it. Okay. Post would obviously look like an object with an ID. I guess let's just put it here so you could visualize what post will look like once we start storing it in the database. Post will have an ID. Post will have, what else will posts have? Post will have a title, build Reddit or something. Post will have an author, Kazi. Okay. And then I'm just going to go ahead and repeat that a few times. Okay, let's go 01, 02, that build medium, build Facebook. Okay, and maybe the author for this one is David. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like. Now, post is going to have more information in there, but that's roughly what it's going to look like. So what we can do here is we can replicate that, and let's just loop through. So I'm going to say post.map, and let's go like this right there. And I'll open parentheses here and open close. Boom. Okay, and then for now, let's just pop that in. So since there are 3 posts, it should create this post component about 3 times. And let's see if it does that. So refresh, see if we're still running into an error. Okay, we're still running into an error. So what's the problem here? Let's wrap it inside of a parent. So let's put a div here and here. Okay, and let's make it pretty. And let's give this a try. And there we go. Now we can actually see that because we have 3 posts in here, 3 posts are showing up, right? Boom, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So now what we can actually do here is we can give this entire post, we can destructure this entire post right inside of post. So what does that mean? That basically means that we're going to have a post where each thing is going to have an ID. We're going to destructure when we pass it with the title and the author. So everything is going to be destructured, and then we'll have access to all of that later. Okay. And we'll be actually destructuring is each post. Okay. So that's what I meant to do. Each post is what we'll be destructuring, because here we're mapping through posts. So let's get access to a post. Okay. And so what will happen is when we're passing the post component, that specific post will basically have that specific post ID, that specific post title, the specific post author. So writing this here is the same thing as essentially doing title is post.title, author is post.author. Okay. So you could write all of that, or you could just write this, and this just destructures the entire post. It's a really clean way of doing it. Now I can go inside of my post component, and I can actually destructure the ID. I could destructure the title and the author, for example. And now here I can replace this with title. And let's say I can replace, we'll do the author parts. Actually, where's the author part? Author will be an info. So our info will actually need access to the author. Okay, so author. And then we can go inside of info. I can go down here where it says posted by clever programmer. Instead, I can actually say posted by author. Okay, so now if we save this, let's see if we have any errors. Posted by author. So we need to destructure author here. And there we go. Now you can actually see the posts are showing up. Like you can see the titles, right? Build Reddit, build Medium, build Facebook. Let's go inside of common, and I'm just going to open up posts in a new tab so we can see posts very clearly. So there we have it. We are passing it all this information. It's showing all of that information. And I think this looks pretty good right now. Let's go and check where we have the post showing up. So I'll open up index here as well. Let's open up the index. And in my index, I have all my posts. Now later, these posts will come from a database. Okay, so I'm just going to leave a comment here. These will come from a database. Okay, we're just hard coding it right now, passing it to our post component, and then our post component has access to all of these properties, and then it's showing all of these properties. Okay, so obviously we don't have all the properties in here right now, but content will be one of the properties too. And that's something that we might as well actually just go ahead and actually write it right now. So we can actually set content. Let's leave it for now, just because it's going to be a lot of like manual work, and let's just do all of this when we actually get the data from a database. I think that'll be better. That's better. Let's do it that way. So there you go. There's your feed component, and now it's working. Only problem is styling wise. So if you look at this, there's some breathing room right here, right? When we look at ours, look at the difference. There's breathing room here. There's no breathing room. There's no breathing room here in ours. In the final version, there is some breathing room right here. Okay, so there's going to be some simple styling that we'll do. So let's just take this div and let's add it in a class name, and we'll say style.wrapper. And then let's go ahead and create styles here. So const style will create a wrapper style, and the wrapper style will just say, hey, put a space in the Y margins and the Y axis. And then we're just going to make the cursor pointer when you hover over any of these things, and we'll wrap. We don't actually even need to use this, honestly. We don't even need to use this because posts should already have those things. All right, so now when I hover over it, looks like that. And there's spacing in between each. So it looks a lot more breathable. And then for post, let's give it the ID as well. So let's just do comma ID, and we'll just do key is ID. Okay, so with that said, our feed component, let's just full screen it. Let's like really soak it in. And look at that. That looks nice. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's looking stunning. So our post component and our feed component are now complete front-end wise. And now we'll get to the really exciting part and add a database and start adding the backend and a lot of functionality to the app. So I'm excited. Let's do it together. Now we're going to go ahead and set up Supabase and pull the posts from there. And you'll see how easy it is to actually do that. So let's open up a new tab and let's go to supabase.com and hit enter. Okay, now I am here. Very simple. So you can just sign in or start your project. So if you've never started your project or you never created anything, just click start. There's not really much to talk about it. It's a Firebase alternative, but you have Postgres and everything. So pretty easy. Let's hit start your project. I've already created an account, so it just brings me right here. You can, you obviously will have to create an account from scratch. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm gonna make a new project here, and you could choose whatever pricing plan you want. I just want it to be free. So the project name I'm gonna choose here is going to be, let's just say Reddit with Next. All right, with NextJS. Now just put in a password. You won't really need to use it later, but this will be for your Postgres database. So we can generate a password, okay? Or we can just write one, whatever we want to do. In this case, I'm just going to hit generate. I don't really care what it is. You could copy it and save it if you need to, but I know I'm not going to really use it in this one later. So it's fine. Just hit create new project and we're done with all of this. Okay. All right. Now in the next step, what we need access to are a couple of config things. We're going to need access to one, our project API key, and two, our URL right here, project URL right here. Okay, these are very important. I'm just going to go ahead and copy because I have a clipboard so I can store multiple things, but you can just hit copy here. Now that I've copied them, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and create a new folder at the global level. So just click the git ignore or literally anything else. Click folders, and this will be called services. And inside of my services folder, we're going to go ahead and do Supabase client.js. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and say import create client from Supabase/Supabase-js. Okay. Now we're importing something that we've never really seen before. So usually, what does that mean? What that basically means usually when I see something like that is I have to actually install that library. So let's go ahead to Supabase and look at their installing instructions, how to install Supabase. It's very simple. We have a yarn command here that we're just going to use. Okay, I can copy it like that. Yarn add Supabase-js. So let's go ahead and open this guy, go to our shell, and we're just going to go ahead and paste this command. And now it's going to install Supabase. So we're all good there. And let's set up the config here. So I'm going to say Supabase URL is going to be process.env next public Supabase URL. And if you're wondering, hey, where the hell are these variables coming from? Don't worry. We're going to set up our own env file, and then we'll store our keys there. Okay. And then we'll do const Supabase. anonymous key, next public Supabase anon key, Supabase. And these aren't like really private keys, right? Because that's why we're saying public. So we're making it very obvious that these are actually like public keys. So just know that these are going to be publicly exposed to whoever's on the client side. Create client, and we're going to go ahead and say pass create client the Supabase URL, and we'll pass it the Supabase anonymous key. Great. Not IRL, not in real life, but a URL. Okay, just make sure you spell everything correctly. So we're done setting up the config file, but all we have to do now is just in our env, just make sure we have these variables. So at the global level, we'll create our env file. Okay, so right here, just simply click git ignore or any of these other ones, hit add a file, and we're going to call it .env.local. Okay, this file usually in git ignore is ignored. So let's look for .env. Yep, so .env.local is ignored. Great. And inside of our env file, we're going to go ahead and say next public Supabase URL. Okay, and then just paste that URL. So I'm going to paste this, and then we're going to do next public Supabase anonymous key, and then just paste your anonymous key. Okay, so we're done pasting those. And what this basically means is now our services Supabase client actually has access to those keys. Okay, now that we've set up this relationship, let's go and add some dummy data to our database. So let's go ahead and click this table editor, and you can see I'm in that project. They should really improve their URL names. Like, what is that? So weird. All right, let's go to here, and we'll create a new table. So just click that. I'll zoom in a lot so you can see everything. And this new table we're going to create, we'll just call it feed. Okay, and feed will have, so in feed we'll have created at, and this will just timestamp to now. So whenever you add a new post to it, it will by default value will just be that same second that you made the post. So that makes sense. So we'll leave that essentially as is. We'll add a new column, and this will be the author. Okay, and the author will be of type text. So I'm just gonna type in text until I find it. Great. Default value will be null. Then we'll have title. Title will also be a text. Then we'll have content, which will also be a text. Boom. And then we'll have upvote, which will be an int 8. Okay, so that just means it's going to be a integer. And then we'll have a downvote, and that's also going to be an integer. Beautiful. So when it comes to feed, that's really all we're going to have. So let's hit save. Okay, adding 7 columns to the feed, and we should be up and running. Now let's go ahead and add a post in here simply. Okay, so I'm going to hit insert row. And for the post, let's say the author is Rafe Kazi. For title, I'm going to say, it's going to be like how to build Reddit with NextJS and Supabase, rocket emoji. And then content will be this tutorial will show you step by step on how to become a developer and build an app. Okay. It will have 8 upvotes and 3 downvotes, and let's hit save. So this is one post now. It's created. And what's nice about this is we'll be able to create a new, we'll be able to retrieve this post, from this table that we've created. So that's what we're going to be working on, and that will finish our setting up of the Supabase. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to go into authentication and also just set up the authentication because we're going to need it for later. But we can just go ahead and set up the auth, some of this auth now. So just go ahead to authentication, go all the way down to Google, and we're going to click it and just do Google enabled. Now, the last thing, but one of the most important things we need is we need to go here. We need to add a redirect URL. So let's go to the top of the app, and where it says user sessions, site URLs, we need to go ahead and add our replit URL right here for our app. So we're going to go and grab this. Okay, whatever your URL is called, mine is called this. You could change yours. You could go here and change the name of this because you've already forked this. So you could call this, let's say, whatever you want. You could change the name of this and then just make sure you put that same one. Okay, so let's say Reddit clone, Reddit build for YouTube. Okay, so I'll hit enter. And once I do that, my URL of the replit changes. Okay, and then this URL will also change. So it's saying working. So simply go ahead and, okay, now it's changed here as well. And in my console, maybe it's working, maybe it's not. Let's hit run again. Let's see if it works. It should be able to change it and run everything correctly. So the replit is waking up. You got to just sometimes give it some time. And then once it's loaded, you'll be good to go. And there we go. So sometimes it can take some time. Just be patient, wait, because it is deploying it to a whole new, it's like doing a whole new build, to a whole new URL. It has to deploy it online. So just give it a second and then it'll be up and running. So right now it is up and running and we're good. So this is the URL that I'm going to take. And I'll head over to Supabase here. Don't need that tab. Okay, open it up. And instead of this site URL right here for user sessions, we'll just paste this redirect URL. Okay, let's hit save. Okay, great. In terms of the setup, we are essentially done with the Supabase setup. Now, all we have to do is actually retrieve a post from Supabase and then actually show it inside of our feed. So let's make sure that we finish doing that, okay? Because that, to me, that's really finishing the setup, because then you know everything is plugged in, connected, working how it's supposed to be working, okay? So let's go ahead into our pages. Okay, let's go. All right, so now what we want to do is in our pages, we need to actually create our own backend real quick. So instead of API, I'm just going to go ahead and create a new one. We'll call it getPosts.js. And we don't need this hello TS, so we can just go ahead and remove this. Okay, so inside of getPosts, this is going to be our back end where we're going to retrieve, basically do our queries to the database and retrieve the data from here. Okay, and then from the front end, we'll call this endpoint and get the data that we need. All right, so we're going to go ahead and say import. We need access to Supabase, and we'll say from services/Supabase client. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and say export default. It's going to be an async function. Okay. We're going to take in a request and a response, even though we're really not going to do anything with the request in this one. And then what we want to do is we want to destructure the response that we get from Supabase. We'll await Supabase. Okay. And this is a really nice part because this is like SQL, right? From feed. So we're going to get the data from that table feed that we created. So if I go in here, I'm going to tables, right? This is the table feed from feed. And we'll say dot select, and we can select something specific, like a specific column. But in this case, we'll say give us all of the columns. And then we'll order it by ID, which in this case will be kind of ordered. And we can just do ascending false. This will also show us the most recent post first. And then the last thing we want to do here is let's just go ahead and say status is 200. And then we will, status at 200. And then we're going to call the JSON method on that. Okay. And we'll just return the data. So we'll grab that data and we'll return that data. Okay. So in other words, just think about it like this. When this query happens, it goes to the table, gets that entire feed table, and then just sends it back. And then we have access to it inside of our JavaScript code. Okay. All right. Now from the front end, we need to go ahead and retrieve this as well. So let's go to our index, which is going to be our index.tsx. So let's go to pages. Let's go to our index. Okay. And here we'll get access to our posts. Now, we're going to use something called the SWR hook. I love this. And just to show you a little bit about it, SWR hooks are phenomenal. You should be using them all the time. So wherever you use effect and then you do an API request, just replace that with SWR. And Lee Rob from Vercel also told me about this. And Vercel created Next. And so he's telling me, hey, use this all the time. So what I love about this is this works with SSR, okay, server-side rendering, works with TypeScript, and it's real time. So it fetches the data in real time, and it can actually keep refreshing that specific component for you over and over again. So if we're pulling data from a database, remember, that's not gonna, if it's not Firebase or if it's not a real-time database, it's not gonna render in real time. But using SWR, we can actually keep refreshing that specific component. And so that way, if it gets new data or it gets changed, it will refresh and just update with the new change without needing to refresh the entire page. So that's beautiful. It basically will mimic a real-time functionality. And also what I like about it is that you don't need to, when you start using SWR, you don't need to write all those like use effects and then keep track of state variables and create your fetch requests and do all of that stuff. It can kind of just do that all in one go. Okay, so that's why we're going to be using this. And we're going to go ahead and install this first, obviously. So let's click get started. And it just says yarn add SWR, and that's how we install it. So let's go ahead and install this now. So I'm going to go in here and let's open up this. And I'm going to kill my server here. And we're just going to do yarn add SWR. And once that installs, I'm going to yarn dev again. And then I'm going to start running my server. So my app starts running. But in the meantime, while that's installing, let's go ahead and say import use SWR, because that's the hook that we're getting from SWR. And then inside of our home component, what I want to do is set a state variable called my posts, set my posts. Okay. And for these posts, we need to import use state if we didn't yet. So let's go ahead and do that. Import use state from React. Okay, let's see if the install happened already. No, it's still installing. So let's let that just keep running. All right. And then the next thing that I want to do is I want to write my SWR hook. So I'm going to say const, let's destructure the data and the error from it. And we'll use our SWR hook. We'll hit our endpoint get post. So we are going to hit essentially this endpoint right here. And what's nice about Next is that this right here, guys, is our backend, and it's a serverless function. So it's a serverless backend, which is absolutely beautiful. And we didn't even need to necessarily create a full backend and a full front end. It just all comes together once you do serverless. So I really enjoy the experience you get from with serverless functions. So this will hit our backend endpoint, and then we need to give it a fetcher, and then we need to just track, whether it's loading or not. Because if it is loading, then we need to show a loader. Otherwise, we don't need to show a loader. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. Ignore completely what I just said. Ignore that. Okay. So SWR is going to need this, and the fetcher needs to tell it how you want it to fetch stuff. So the fetcher is going to be simple. We'll just write our own fetcher here. And it's this fetcher right here. And it's just a wrapper on the native fetch. So you can literally copy this and we can paste this fetcher. Okay, that's it. That's our fetcher. We don't really need to even understand what the heck it's doing. But what it's doing is we're going to hit this endpoint, and then we're just going to retrieve its result as a JSON. Okay. And then that result is just going to be named data. And then we can console log data, obviously, after we retrieve it. All right. So now let's go ahead and run our app and see what happens. So I'm going to do yarn dev. Okay. Let's make it a little bit bigger here. Let's open up our app. Okay, and I just console logged that data, and let's see what happens. So let's go ahead and inspect element, and we will go to console. Okay, and wow, this is too huge, so I'll make this a little bit smaller. Okay, so we're right now not console logging anything. So let's try putting a emoji here. So maybe I can see that emoji. Let's refresh our homepage and see if we see any emojis or anything like that. Yes, we actually do. And look at that. We got back our data. Look at that. Wow. And we're getting back our post. This tutorial will show you step by step, blah, blah, blah. It actually shows you the author, content, created at, downvote, shows you everything, right? And we're getting that data back. And because we're using SWR, it actually does caching for us, and it does validation for us, and it will also revalidate everything. So that is a beautiful experience, because if I run this, boom, everything just happens so fast and instantly. And then the more I run this, the faster it is, because it's just retrieving that same cached post. Okay. Now I'm going to tell it when to refresh. So I can actually give it a object here and say, hey, the refresh interval for this is going to be like 200 milliseconds. So every 200 milliseconds, just go ahead and refresh for me. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to have a use effect hook. Okay, let's write use effect, and I'll just make the dependency a dummy dependent. A data will be our dependency. So that's an important thing that we need to remember. Okay, and let's open and close that. Cool, and make sure to import use effect as well. Okay, import it, great. And inside of this use effect, what we'll say is, hey, if we don't have data, then just return, because it's a guard clause. Just don't do anything if there's no data. Otherwise, I want you to set my posts data.data. Okay, so set my posts to whatever they were, and that'll be set up. And now my posts, we have access to them. I can pass my posts to feed, for example. We can go here and say posts is equal to my posts. Okay, and now we can go inside of feed. So I'm gonna command click it, or just go manually, and you can go components, you can go feed, and you can go index. Okay, and now I'll destructure posts from here. Okay, and we don't need these posts anymore. The dummy data that we had, we don't need that anymore. So now post will know already what to do. We're already retrieving the data from our backend. We're passing it to our front end now. And let's see if our post already knows what to do with it. Yes, it does. That was such a smooth transition, baby. Look at that. We got 5 votes. And how is that happening? Remember how we did upvotes minus downvotes? So it's already doing the subtraction for us too, because we had 8 upvotes and 3 downvotes. So that's already happening, and we're getting back 5. Now let's go ahead and change upvotes to, let's say, 20 upvotes. Okay, so I just changed it in the database directly. And let's go ahead and refresh our page. Okay, so let's actually first of all go into our index again. So I'll get out of post here. Let's go to our pages, and let's go to our index.tsx. Okay, perfect. And now let's go ahead and refresh and see if it can retrieve that data. Oh, so we probably actually did not make our upvotes and downvotes dynamic right now. I think we had it hard coded to be something dummy. I remember that. You probably remember that too. So let's actually go ahead and fix that. I believe, where was that? In votes, I believe. Let's go feed, vote, upvotes minus downvotes, and we're getting dummy data right here, right? So we want to destructure upvotes, and we want to destructure downvotes, and remove these 2 guys. And then where are we calling vote? I think we're calling it in post, and we're calling vote right here. So we need to actually give it upvotes, and then we need to give it downvotes, and then we need to destructure that. How do votes get to here? Post should have access to upvotes and downvotes actually. Yeah. Okay. It's saying NaN. Interesting. Feed index. We're getting posts. We're passing the post straight up. We're then going into our post right here. Let's just console log this here and see what the heck is happening. So console log up. I will do it as an object, and I'll just say upvotes, and let's refresh. Let's see what it says. So it says upvotes is undefined. Interesting. Okay. So we know that whatever we're getting for upvotes is actually not defined. The error is actually a user error. So it's actually my mistake. Okay. So the error is this. We need to go to our Supabase, and we called it upvote here, singular, but it's actually upvotes. So we need to go ahead and hit edit on this and change that name to upvotes and this to downvotes. Okay, and hit save. All right, now let's go back and look at that. It already updated and we didn't even refresh. How freaking cool is that? Okay, let's try making downvotes 0 now. So it should just straight up say 20. So I made them 0. And look at that, it's 20. Again, you saw that, right? I did not do a refresh. And this isn't even like some real-time subscription or any of that. This is just because I'm using SWR, right? So actually, let me make it so it's side by side so you can see it, because this is pretty cool. This is exciting. So let's go ahead, put this bad boy side by side, and we will change the downvote. So let's say 20, so it should go down to 0. Ooh, look at that. That was slick. And now let's go ahead and do downvote 0. Let's do upvotes 2000. Whew. Slick. That is so slick. And how quickly it happens and everything. That is absolutely beautiful. Wow. That is awesome. Honestly, this was actually one of my first times personally using SWR, because like we never used that hook, but like Lee did tell me to use it and I didn't really think much of it. I'm like, it's just a more convenient way to write your own hook and write your own fetch. But no, it's just a million times better. And now I understand why everybody and their mother uses SWR, and it's one of the most downloaded packages. So that's just an awesome experience. And I'm just really happy that we got to see that together. So there you go. Now we're actually retrieving the data and we're able to show it. So with that said, we're fully done setting up Supabase. We've verified that we've set it up. We're able to pull posts. We're able to get posts and we're able to show them. And now we're going to actually go ahead and start implementing all of that data and adding it to our front end. All right. So just to make posts look a little bit fuller, kind of like, making you get a food plate and you want to make it look nicer, right? Let's do that here. So I want to add a few more posts because I have one post right here. That's great. But let's just add a few more posts. How are we going to do that? Let's just add it straight to our database or our Supabase. Let's just go here and I will copy some of this text and then we'll hit insert another row. Okay. And we will say David Ricosi. Title is build medium with TypeScript. Content is going to be upvote's going to be 653 and downvotes are going to be 225. Let's hit save and look at that, man. That is fucking cool. Wow, that is awesome. That just happened without refreshing. And this is not a real-time database, which is why it's so cool. Like SWR is king. SWR is detected, data changed, and then it just refreshed everything on the fly. And that's component specific. Let's using it and showing it right here. So now we got 2 posts right here. So if you add more posts, it'll show more posts. So we're good on that. Okay. Now, next up, what we're going to actually work on is going to be the ability to create a new post, meaning that if I go to this version of my app, I can actually go ahead and hit create a post and I can write a new post. I wonder how you are doing today. I am doing wonderful by Kevin O'Leary. Okay, cool. Mr. Wonderful right there. So we added that and that's how we add new posts. So there you go. Okay. I should be able to go to this page. So this is the page we're going to create. We're not going to create the functionality right now. Okay. So right now when you hit post, really nothing's going to happen, but we should be able to go to this new page. Now here are a few things I noticed right away. So a few things I noticed is my URL route has changed and it says /new. So when that happens, I'm already thinking that I'm actually going to be creating a new page inside of pages in React in my next app. And that new page that I'm going to create is going to be called new. And then in that will allow me to actually come to this page right over here. So what that looks like is in my pages, I'm simply going to hit add file and I'm just going to do new.js. So this is going to allow me to create essentially a new post. Okay, that's what it is. And we're going to say const new return. Let's just go div here /div. And I'll just put a h1 that says new post. Export default new. So we're just going to have this be our page and it's going to be pretty simple. So that's all we're going to render. We should be able to go here by clicking the create a post button. So I'm going to go into my components and inside of our components, we have this create post button inside of our feed. So we have next link here, which is useful. And when I go to create posts, you'll notice that we already have that added for you where it routes to /new. So when you route to /new, what next is going to do is it's going to bring you to this page. Okay. So basically this component right here, let's go here. This component right over here already has that functionality where when I click it, it'll add /new to my route. So let's go ahead and click. Okay, and let's see what's happening. Nothing is happening yet. Let's refresh and try again. Oh, sorry, I was clicking the wrong one. That's not what I meant to click. This right here. When we click this, it will route us to /new. So let's click it, and boom, there we go. We're on the new post page, right? Boom, right there. The routing is already done, which is really nice in React. You don't have to worry too much about routers and routing. And on this page, we'll have a couple of things on our post page. So one thing I definitely want to have here, if I go look at this and create post, my header actually remains there. My header never goes away. And my about is actually there as well. So those are a few components I'm definitely going to need to import. So I'm going to say import header from, we'll do components / and I'll say header. And I'll also do import about from components / community / about. Okay. And so we're going to show header. Okay. Let's go header like this. And then we'll also have about like that. So we'll definitely have these. So let's see if it shows up in our app. So it says it can't resolve header and it's having trouble resolving about. So about is actually with the capital A. So let's do it like that. Okay, now I believe we should be good. There we go. Right, let's make this full screen right here. And we can see our about component is showing up and we can see our header is showing up too. So both of our components are showing up. Now let's add a wrapper around it and style it. So I'm going to just go ahead and say class name and also flex min height of the screen. And then we'll put it in flex column, give it a background of black, and then give it a text of D7, D8, DC. Okay, great. So my styling for the header part is done, or sorry, for the entire, like as a wrapper is done. And now we're going to go ahead and style our wrapper as well, or about as well. Sorry. So let's go ahead and wrap it here. And I'm going to go ahead and say class name. We'll say hidden. Okay. So now it's only going to show up when it's 1/3 of the screen. Otherwise, it's going to stay hidden. All right. So up until 2/3 of the screen, essentially, it's not going to show up. So that's kind of what we want, because if we're in this mode, we don't want about showing up and taking up the whole screen. Okay. So that right there just adds that little mobile responsiveness touch, which is really nice. Okay. And then we need to actually work on a new component. It's just going to be called post form. And this will allow us to add a post or create a post. So let's go ahead and add that component in now. So I'm just going to go ahead and do my import statement already. I'm going to say import post form from components / new / post form. Okay. That already tells me what type of route I need to create here. So let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay. So I need to go inside of my components, create a new folder. It'll be called new. And inside of that folder, I will create a new file. It'll be called post form. All right. And for now, what I'll do is I'll just say const post form turn, and we'll just make a div. This div will have an h1 in there that says post form. And we'll go here and we'll just say export default post form. Okay. And then let's go back to our pages and new.js. And in here, we'll have that post form show up. Now, the question is, where do we have that post form show up? Let's just pop that here for now, and let's just see what happens. I'm going to put post form right there for now. Let's go to our app and let's refresh and see if post form is actually showing up anywhere. So post form currently is not really showing up anywhere. Let's see. I'll go to post form. Okay, interesting. There we go. So it was hiding behind the header. Okay, now it's showing up. You can see post form is showing up, right? I just have to paste it a couple of times. And so yeah, so basically this component is showing up. It's connected. And now we can actually start working on our post form component. And so for our post form component, let's just do, obviously this will be a form in here. So, but we'll start this here with saying create a post. create a post. Okay. And then since it's a form, we're probably going to have like 2 input fields. This is going to be an input field. This is probably going to be a text area because this is a big text and I can also change its sizing. I imagine there's going to be a wrapper that's going to have a border radius and a gray color. So I can already kind of imagine a bunch of things. Let's make our input fields. So I'm going to say input and then make it self-closing. And then for this input, I'm going to say class name is going to be style.input. We'll create the styling for it soon enough. And then type is going to be text placeholder. Okay, so let's go back and let's create style objects. So we're going to say style and we will just leave it empty for now. Okay, just going to paste this a couple of times so we can see this. So now you can see input is showing up. Now let's make our text area. Okay, that'll also be self-closing. So I'll say text area. And for class name, we'll also do style is input. And the name of this will be content. The ID of this will be content. For column, we'll make it 30 columns. And for rows, it's calls, plural. And for rows, we'll make it 10. And then we'll add a placeholder that says text required, like that. There we go. So we got an input and we got a text area. So far, so good. Now, obviously, this looks horrendous. So what we need to do is we need to actually add a wrapper around everything. So we'll say class name style.wrapper. All right, so let's create the styling for that. So I'm going to say wrapper and we'll say flex column space y6. Okay, so now we have some spacing in between on the y-axis, some spacing in between these two. We made a flex column, so that looks better. Okay, so that, yeah, it looks significantly better. Now let's go ahead and get rid of all of these H1s and let's see if this still shows up. Post still shows up. Yeah, kind of still shows up here. Let's go back inside of new.js and make it so we can actually see post form because right now it just keeps getting hidden and that's kind of annoying. So let's go div, wrap it around this, and I'm going to say class name, and we're going to make the width full. Okay, then we're just going to do that. Okay, so this will take, on a large screen, it'll take 2/3 of the screen. Okay, otherwise it's going to be like width full. That's what we're saying here. Okay, so see, 2/3. If I get rid of this, then it'll just keep taking the full screen, and that's not what we want. Okay, we want it to be like 2/3 right here. Okay, and then we want to wrap this inside of a main. So we want to wrap everything inside of a main. So I'm going to make main. Let's finish wrapping it up until here. And I will grab this and indent that in there. And so for main, I'm going to say class name. We'll go MX auto. Okay, margin top 16. So now we're going to give it margin top. That allows you to actually see the damn thing, right? Otherwise, it's so hard to freaking see where it is. Okay. And MX auto just gives it margin, horizontal margin in the center. So then it can actually center it. Okay. And then we'll go flex on this. We'll go width full. And then we'll say max width is going to be 5XL. I'll flex 1 to it. I'll give it a space and of 6 in between each on the x-axis. We'll give a padding of 5 and then a padding of 6 horizontal. Okay, that's main. So there you go. Look at that. That is absolutely gorgeous. Now everything is showing up in its right place where it's supposed to show up. Okay, now what we have to do is inside of our post form, we have to style our input. So let's create the styling for that. So I'm going to say input. And for the styling of input, we're going to say, give me a background color, first of all. So let's start with that. 1A, 1A, 1B. Okay. So already looks way, way, way better. But I don't like when I click it, it shows those things. So we'll fix all of that. Okay. We'll give it a border as well. And we'll give it a border of a specific color. So I'm going to say 3, 4, 3, 5, 3, 6 here. So now the borders will just look a little bit, tad bit cleaner. We'll give it a padding on the x-axis of 4. There we go. So now it doesn't really look like I'm writing super close to the edge. We'll give a padding on the y-axis of 2. So it doesn't look like we're writing super close to the top. So it looks way nicer now. And then we'll add some text. We'll text left it. We'll make the text small. We'll make the text white. And we'll just say, hey, outline should be none when we focus on it. Okay, there you go. So now focus on this, no outline. And when I write, it's white. Okay. So input is looking really good now. Now what we have left besides the input is are really just a couple of things. I mean, we have most of the styling here done. We just need to make sure that we also style the title. So when we're writing in there, that looks like an actual title and not like a measly little text. So for our title input, where we're going to actually add the style is right here where we're actually doing the title. Oh, we got rid of the title. So let's go here and actually create our own title. Whoops, my bad. Class name. Okay, and we'll do style.title, and then we'll write create a post, just like that. Okay, now let's take a look. Boom, create a post is here. So we'll style that bad boy. All right, so for the styling of this, I'm gonna say title, and we'll do border. We'll give it a border at the bottom. We'll give it a border of a specific color. And then I'll give a padding on the padding bottom of 3. We'll make the text very, very large. Okay. And then I want to make the font medium. There we go. So now create a post. It looks very clean. Okay, so we're good on that. And then all we want now is we want to add a post button as well. So right underneath all of this, we'll go ahead and create a button. That button will say post, and we'll say class name for this is going to be style post button. Okay, so the button is right there. I can click it. Won't be doing anything, won't be doing much right now. And then we need to style that button. So let's go here and I'll say post button. Okay, and then for the styling of this button, we want to give it a background color. So background gray 200. Okay, so now we see there's something there behind it. We'll give it a padding of 4, padding at the top of 1.5. We'll make the text of this extra small. We'll make the font semi bold. We'll give a specific text color, 1A, 1B, and we'll make it rounded full. There we go. So now, boom, look at that. It's nice, right? It just says post, and we can create our post. Okay. And now what we need is we need a post button container actually. And so let's go right here. Let's wrap this up in a div. We'll say div, close the div right here. This is going to be class name is going to be style.post button container, post button container like that. And let's go ahead and style this bad boy. We're going to give it a flex, justify it, everything to the end, and then give it a padding top of 2. So now it looks much nicer. But if we look at the final version, see in the final version, we actually have a padding around the whole, a background around the whole thing, a wrapper, which we don't here. So let's go ahead and add that styling to this now. So basically we need to go and wrap our entire input. Okay. So essentially it's our form. Like think of this input here and that text there and that button as a form. And so we're going to wrap that entire thing in there. That's interesting. All right. So let's go here and I'm going to say div, take it all the way down to the button and post it. Okay. And then the styling that we're going to give it is we're just going to say class name of this is going to be flex. Going to make a flex column space. We're going to go Y2 on this rounded. And then we're going to give it a background color, this background color right here. And then we're going to give it a padding of 4. Okay. So now you can see the whole thing is nice and together and the post button shows up right there, right? So now that they're looking a lot more similar. Now the front end for our create a new post is completed because I can write here and I can hit post. But the part that's not completed is the ability to actually write to the database, meaning when I actually make a post here, it should get stored right over here. So that's the functionality we're going to work on and finish right now. All right, now inside of our post form, we're going to create a new function that's going to allow us to write to the database and store stuff. So we're going to say const create post, and it's going to be async, and we're going to take in an event as an argument, and we're just going to prevent default on that. Okay, so that's just so saying, we're just basically saying, hey, don't refresh the page. Okay, that's it. All right, now what we're going to do is this is going to be really simple, honestly. we're going to go ahead and await Supabase. Okay. And we're going to go into the from feed and into the feed. Okay. And into the feed table, we're just going to insert an object. Okay. And that's going to be author. Let's do it like this. Author. We're only just going to insert one object. Okay. We could probably insert multiple, but just going to do one. Author is going to be, let's say, clever programmer, comma. Title is going to be writing to this from my front end, meaning I'm not, literally writing from the database. I'm writing this from the front end. Okay. And then the content will be, did this work? I believe it worked. Okay. Put a comma here and a comma here. Great. And that's essentially, that's that easy to actually write to the database. But lastly, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it in a try catch block. So here's what we're going to do. Okay. So we'll wrap this whole bad boy in a try catch block. So put that here. Okay. Boom. Like that. Okay. So we're going to try this. And then if it doesn't work, we're going to catch the error. And then we'll simply just console log, console error, the error. So it just pops up like an error. Okay. And then we're going to say, finally, okay, we're going to router.push you to the home page. So once the post actually succeeds, we'll just take you back to the new home page because you don't need to be on the new page anymore. Okay. So for that, we're going to need some routing. So let's just bring in import use router from next/router. All right. And then what we want to do is get access to that router. So we're going to say router is use router. Okay. So there we go. So now to that router, we're just going to push. Okay. And then we're also going to just keep track of a loading state. And that's going to be helpful later when we actually add a loader. For now, it's just going to help us have a state variable. Okay. So boom. And I'm just going to say loading and we're going to say set loading. Okay, we're going to say use state is false. You can even call it is loading everywhere. Is loading, set is loading. Okay, so we can actually just go ahead and set is loading to be false here because, well, it's done being loaded and it's done. And then here we can set is loading to be true because the loading has just begun here. And then once you're done, finally, boom, done. Okay. So that is great. Okay. Even if we have an error, right? We want to do a finally and then just go back and say loading is done. So this should help us write to the database. Now, there's just a few things we have to take care of here. In our post form, we do need to actually track what the user is typing and where they're typing it. So let's first of all import use state and things like that since we need access to them. So let's go use state from React. So the user is going to be typing data here. We need to keep track of this state, and the state of the button being pressed. Okay. Or just a button being pressed having an on click method. Okay. So let's go ahead and go title, set title, and initial state is going to be empty. And the next state we need to keep track of is the content. So just say content, set content, and I'm going to make use state is going to be empty for this. Okay. So I have loading, title, content, and router. These three are the main states that I need to keep track of. Now we need to keep track of it here as well. So for this input, I'm going to say the value of this is title. And then on change, I need to grab the event and I need to say set title to whatever is being written in there. Okay. Just like that. We're going to do on change. And then we're going to do a similar thing for text area. Okay, so just copy paste that, except for value, we're going to say content, right? And then for the rest of this, we're going to say set content to be whatever the user is typing in at that time. Okay, so that means we're good and we're tracking that. And then we just need to add an on-click method onto the button. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we're going to say on-click, and we're going to give it this method create function that we created, create post. So on click, run this. Okay. So let's see if we're actually able to write to our database. We have to probably import Supabase as well because we don't have access to it here. So I'm going to say import Supabase from, and we're going to say services/Supabase client. Okay. Great. And now let's go ahead and write something and let's see if it pops up here. So I'm going to say test1 and let's hit post. Let's see if anything happens. Something happened. Okay. Let's refresh and see. Did a new post get added? That would be really cool if it did. Maybe it didn't. Oh, it worked. That was so nice and easy. Look at that. And it says, clever programmer writing to this from my front end. Okay. That was incredibly easy to do, right? Writing this from a front end. Boom, boom. Oh, our post actually needs to read the content. So it's not reading the content. So let's just see what's happening with our post component because that's not correct. So I'm going to go into our post component, feed/index.js. Yeah. And then let's go inside of our post component. So let's go to common. Let's go to post. And inside of here, yeah. So this is going to be content. Okay, because I had it hard coded to something else. Okay, let's destructure content as well because we're past that down and that should work. There we go. Nice. Look at that. Did this work? Can't believe it worked. Writing to this from my front end. This tutorial will show you step by step on how to become a developer. Perfect. Okay, this is really, really solid. So let's try adding a new post. Let's go here, new post. Wow, this is incredible. Let's go like this. Let's hit post and let's see if it happened. Let's refresh. Oh, it did not happen. Maybe we hard coded some stuff. So let's see what, seems like we did something a little bit funny. Yes, we've hard coded data. So for example, author, title, and content, we've hard coded it. So we need to not hard code it. Okay, so author will leave hard coded because we'll be able to, once we add authentication, we'll be able to keep track of the logged in user. But title, we can actually certainly change. So title is going to be this. Okay, so it's going to be the title. So I can actually just go ahead and replace that with title and then put a comma. So just so you know something, saying title is the same thing as saying title, comma, title, colon, title. So you can just say title here. And then for content, you could just do the same trick. All right, so there you go. And now let's make a new post. Let's go ahead, test2. Let's write it. Boom, there you go. Look at how fast this is, right? Fast, boom, post, boom. And it all feels like it's happening real time, even though we're not doing real time. This is so exciting. So there you go. Now everything is working. Everything is working dynamically. The only thing that's not necessarily dynamic is the author, and we'll get to that by adding authentication next. Right before we do that, let's just actually add a loader so we can see a nice little loading screen as our post is getting added. So let's create loading, and where we're going to create it is we can actually just create it inside of components. So let's go to components and hit a new file, and we will just say loading.js. So this is going to be a component. And inside of loading.js, we'll try to go through this one kind of fast. So we'll import loading animation, okay, from, and we have this, it's inside of assets. So if you fork this, then you should have access to loading animation as well. Okay, so we're going to say loading animation from, whoops. We'll go into assets and we'll say loading animation, just like that. Okay, and then we'll say const, let's go loading first. All right, and I'll say return. We'll create a div and it's going to be our wrapper. So I'll say class name is going to be style.wrapper. And then we'll plug in our loading animation and we'll say style is. And then we'll give it an h2. And we'll say class name is style.loading text. We'll say loading ... Okay. And then we'll just wrap up the styling for this. So for the wrapper, we need it to be fixed instead of 0, z index of 50, because we wanted to take over the whole screen. Because what we want it to look like is, if I was to make a new post here, it takes over the whole screen, right? And it has a background gray overlay. And then you saw that it has the loading screen pop up and it dominates the rest of the screen, right? So that's why Z50 here is important. And then we're going to say, hey, take the entire height of the screen, the entire width of the screen, flex column, item, center it. We'll justify center. We'll give a gap of 6, overflow hidden, and then background black, but not completely black. So we'll give a /80 right here. Perfect. So that's our wrapper. Loading icon will be margin right of 2, height of 20, width of 20. We'll animate a spin in there, add fill white, and then let's do text gray 600 for this. And then we'll do loading text. And for this, I'm going to say text center. We'll make the text large. Let's make the font semi-bold, and then we'll make the text also white. Okay. So that's our loading. That's really it. Let's go back to our post form. Let's make sure we're exporting this. Let's export default loading. Okay. Now let's go to post form. So I'll go to new post form. Let's import that. So let's go ahead and say import loading from, and I believe it's loading close by to us, right? It's just one folder behind. Let's just double check. I'm in new. Yeah, I get that one folder and then I have access to loading. Okay, great. So we have access to loading here. And now we want to show the loader pretty much all over the screen. So let's go here, and the loader is going to be right over here. And we're going to basically say, if the state is loading, in that case, show loading. Okay, so show the loader or loading. Okay, and you can do is loading. So if is loading is true, then show loading. Otherwise, don't show loading. Okay, so we'll just do if is loading is false, show loading. So that way, when I click into create a post, it should be showing loading the whole time. There we go. So it's working, right? And now I'll change the state to true. Okay, and now I'll stop. Let's make a new post and see the loading came up. So beautiful. The loader is locked and loaded, and it's no pun intended, and it's working perfectly as expected. Now let's go on to the next step and add authentication. So now we're going to go ahead and create this login page right over here. So if I log out of this and I go here, this is a page that will bring me to. So this is the page that we're trying to make now. Okay, that right there. So let's get to work. All right. So first things first, this is going to be a component rather than a page. And we'll just add it to our components without putting it in any subfolders. Let's just add it here right next to loading. So click components, click a new file, and then we're going to go ahead and say login.js. Okay. Now, since it's a component, we know the drill. Okay. Return. Let's do div. Let's say that div returns an h1 login, and we'll say const export default login. All right, so when we think about our home page, let's take a look at this. If I look at this, I need just this image right here and probably this image right here. So there's probably only 2 images that I really need, okay? And you can copy the link from mine, or you could just find them on your own and paste them here. So there's 2 images. Other things I noticed is everything is center aligned, right? Everything is in the center, vertically, horizontally. So I know I'll need to center everything. This is a button. I can also see that it has rounded corners. So I know there's some border radius action happening. I also know there's a border happening, and I know it's a white color border. It's a border white. This most likely is a button. Okay, so there's a couple of things that I'm noticing already off the bat, which is going to make my job of doing the front end work a little bit easier. Now we need to just make sure that we can actually render this component. So let's go back to our index. So we're going to go to index.tsx, and let's just make sure that we're rendering this. And how we're going to render this is inside of this wrapper. Okay, we're going to check if the current user is logged in, and if they are, then we're going to show them all of this, and if they aren't, then we're going to show them something else. We're going to show them the login page. So it's like, hey, are you going to see the login page, or are you going to see the home page? Which page are you going to see? So let's add that right here. Okay, so is user logged in? If so, in this case, this is a ternary operator. So let's put a question mark here. Okay, is user logged in? Question mark. If they're logged in, then what we want to do is show them, let's just say the home page. Otherwise, we want to show them, let's just say the login page. Okay, so that's effectively what we're doing. Okay, so I'm going to put parentheses around here, and we're going to take all of this code right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut it, and we're just going to paste it right here because that's the definition of home essentially. And then for this login, boom. Okay, we can just put that right there so we can see there's a very clear divide, this or that. Okay, let's see, is our thing crashing yet? Not crashing yet, so that's a good sign. Let's go hello. Okay, let's refresh. Okay, let's just double check that everything hasn't crashed. So it looks like it has. So let's just go yarn dev and let's restart our server and then just wait a couple of seconds until this is ready to go. Let's just actually have an empty fragment right here. Okay, and empty fragments for now. Let's just have empty fragments instead of that hello. Okay, so let's make sure that that probably works better. And then we'll also need probably some kind of fragment action here. So there is a div if there's a current user. Actually, let's do it this way. Let's grab this wrapper and let's put that wrapper here. And let's end that div here instead. Let's grab this div and let's end that. Okay, so everything is in the wrapper and push this here. Okay, so there we go. And then this entire thing will wrap this in an empty JSX fragment. So there we go. Empty JSX fragment, wrap this entire thing up in a div. So show this, right? Or show this. These are the two things that we're going to show. Okay, so now it should be working. Let's refresh. And there we go. Okay. So right now we're basically saying, hey, is the user logged in? The true value of this is true. So since that's true, it's going to show the home page. But if we say the user is not logged in, so I'll just put a Boolean false here. I'll just say not logged in. Then it'll show this. Okay, so that's working. Now I need to just replace this guy here with just a login component. So I'm going to go ahead and say login like that. Okay, and then we'll import login. So I'll say import login from, import login from, and we'll say components and we'll say login. There we go. So now our login component is connected and is showing up. Okay. Now, if you want to make this nicer, what you could do is you could just create a sub component. I love to actually do this. And you could create this here. And you could just say const home page. Okay, and you can say return, and you could pop that in there. So now you have this component called home page. And so what you could do is you could just replace all of this with home page, and now it's a component. And so like, look at that. It already looks so much cleaner as code. If I get rid of it, it will bring you to the home page. Oh, now it says my post is not defined. So let's see, my posts. Okay, home page. We will give it my posts is equal to my posts, and it will destructure my posts. Okay, so now it has access to my posts. Perfect. And we can, so look at that. Already it's clean, and we can just make it even cleaner by this up here, right? And if you think about it, if I don't have the wrap on and I just go full screen mode for a second, you don't need these parentheses anymore either. Okay, we can bring this on the same line. You don't need these parentheses anymore. Okay, look at that. Isn't this way easier to read than what we were reading earlier? Right? So if the user is user logged in, if they are, then show them the home page. Otherwise, show them the login page. So this is like way cleaner to read. So that's why I like to do it like this. It's a really nice way, and you know, in my opinion, honestly, so like this is great. Okay, so we're good on this side. Now we just have to make sure everything's actually showing up the way we expect it to. So we're having some kind of error here. Let's refresh. Is the error still there? Let's see. Save. Okay, so I don't know how this happened, but I removed the equal sign in my post. So there you go. My post is equal to my post. So that was causing a syntax error and causing it to break. So let's go ahead and refresh now, and it should be fixed. Okay, so we're just going to give it some time to compile, and boom, there we go. We're back in business, baby. Okay, so now this is a nice little one-liner, and then we just wrap it in a JSX fragment, obviously. So this is good. Okay, homepage and login. Now for our login, the logic is we created a different component for login, obviously. So let's go back to that component. It's in /login. Okay, and then in our login, remember we wanted to have that image. So let's go ahead and let's first of all, put the code in this state so we could see this the whole time. So let's go ahead and say that the user is not logged in. So let's just go hard code it. Okay. Now the login page should be showing up the entire time as we're editing it and working on it. Okay. And now this is going to be an image. Okay. And this image is going to have a class name and we'll give it a height. So it's not like too massive. And then for source, I'm going to copy paste this, but you can definitely, either copy what I've written or just copy a different Reddit image and pop it in. So we'll have this. Okay. And that's it as far as the image is concerned. So we got that image. And then we're going to need another image, which is going to be our Google image, right? So let's go ahead and grab that. So we're going to source and I'll copy and paste this here. And once again, you can feel free to find a Google image or just write this one. So I have 2 images and now I have them both here. Great. Now I need to control the size of this. So I need to do class name and we'll give it a height of 6 and a width of 6. That'll make it instantly smaller. And now what I need to do is I want to center align everything. So let's go ahead and say class name style.wrapper. And let's go at the top and we'll say style and wrapper. And then for wrapper, the styling that I want to do here mainly is flex. Give me a min height of this entire screen. Give me flex column. Give me items in the center. And then also justify it in the center too. And then give it some spacing on the Y. Okay. So there we go. Let's go const style. Keep saying style is not defined, but it is now. There we go. Okay, so now it's in the center. Now the Google one, remember, is going to be a button. So let's wrap this in a button. Okay. And this button is going to have a styling. So we're going to say class name for this is going to be style.login button. Let's go ahead and create that styling here. So I'm going to say login button. And for the login button, we're going to create some simple styling. So we're going to say, go ahead and let's actually add the text in too, so you could see everything happening all at once. So inside of this button, right underneath this image, we're going to have a span tag. Okay, we'll give it a class name of style.login button text, and it'll say sign in with Google like this. So now let's create a styling for the login button. So we'll say group. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and say flex items center center. We'll give it some horizontal space. Okay, we'll give it a border gray of 300 and a border so you could see it, a padding of 4, and it should hover white when I hover over it. Okay, there we go. Boom. Great. So now when I hover over it, it hovers white. Okay, so the login button is good. Now let's create styling for login button text. And I'm going to make font bold. And I'm going to say hover. And we'll say text black. There we go. Look at that. That's super clean. So right when we hover, the text on that becomes black and the text on the other one becomes white. And with using Tailwind, what's really nice is we don't even necessarily have to mess around with using React here, because before, if you remember, if you ever built the Uber Eats clone with me or something like that, we would have to do React to keep track of the state of the color of each text and then flip it. This is just way nicer of a way of doing it. So just to show you what this group thing is, kind of nice. So if I actually get rid of this group over here and get rid of this group over here, now when I hover over the button container, the whole thing is white, right? And only when I hover over the text, it becomes black. But when we group them together like this, we have button text and button login button. When we group them together like this, now when I actually hover over, both of them at the same time automatically alternate color. So that's with the group. Okay, so all of our styling for this page is done. If I look at this page, this is exactly what I want it to be. Now, all we have to do is make sure that our sign in with Google actually works. All right, so let's go ahead and import Supabase so we have access to that. So we're going to import a couple of things. We're going to import Supabase from services/Supabase client. We're also going to get loading, but that is for now. We'll get it. We can just get it now. That's fine because we've already built it. We're going to go ahead and import useState because we need to keep track of certain states. All right. So as we continue working on this authentication, just make sure that you have done this part earlier when I showed it to you. Go in authentication settings and just make sure that scroll down to Google, that you have Google enabled. Okay, this is going to be a really important part that you have to have right. Because if you don't have Google enabled, you will not be able to do the login with Google. Okay, so go to Google, hit enable, and then hit save. Okay, so now it should bring you to this page over here, right? And we don't have a client ID and we don't have a client secret. So we're going to set that up together. First, just click Google enabled. And now we're going to create a client ID and a client secret. The way to do that is we're going to go to console, cloud, Google. Okay. Go ahead and click. And then you can just change to your whatever email. Okay. And then what you're going to go ahead and do is you can create a new project. Okay. If you don't have one. So let's just say you create a new project and you can call it Supabase. Okay. Reddit. And then you can go inside of that project once it's done being made. So I'm going to click here. It's taking a second. So it'll get made soon. And then once it's done, just go inside of it. Cool. And now that we're inside of it, let's go credentials. And here we'll create credentials. And we're going to choose OAuth client ID. So let's choose that. The first thing it's going to ask us to do is create a consent screen. So we'll hit external, we'll hit create. And then here, app name, Reddit, Supabase. We'll pop in the email. We will pop in my email right here, developer email, hit save and continue. So that's it for the consent screen. We're done. And now let's go on the left-hand side and choose credentials again. Okay, so now we can actually create credentials because we are done creating our consent screen. So hit create credentials, try OAuth client ID again, application type, choose web application. We'll say Reddit, Supabase, and authorized redirect URIs. Here's what we're going to need to do. Go inside of your Supabase. Okay, go inside of settings. All right, let's go to settings. And then inside of settings, go to API, copy this URL right here, the project URL, go back and paste that, but you're going to need to add something here. So if you look at Supabase's instructions for how to set this up, what they want you to do is add this to that URL where it says auth v1 callback and that slash. So let's copy. Let's go back here and let's paste it. So you should have that URL plus it should say auth/v1/callback. Okay, let's go ahead and create this. And now it's going to give you a client ID and your client secret. So copy this, go back to Supabase and paste the client ID, copy this client secret, go back to Supabase and paste this. Let's paste it. So our client secret is here. Our client ID is here. And now we have that redirect URL. It's fully made. Okay, ready to go. Let's go ahead and hit save. Great. So now we successfully have Google authentication enabled. And now we can finish up writing the rest of the code for this. Okay, so let's go here. And I'm going to say const sign in with Google. We'll say async. Okay, and then we're going to say, hey, try this. And so for try, we're going to grab the error and the user, destructure the error and the user. We're honestly don't even really need to worry about error right now. Let's just destructure the user from Supabase.auth.signin. Okay, and then the provider is going to be Google. And then once this happens, let's just console log user. Okay, and let's connect this to that button. So I'm just going to add an on-click property for this button. We'll say on-click, and we'll just say run sign in with Google when we do it. Let's just make sure we don't have any errors here. So, okay, try, maybe I have to have catch error, and we can just say console.error. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to click sign in with Google. Let's see if anything happens. Boom, it actually does take me here. Let's go kaziacleverprogrammer.com. Nice. That was clean. Let's hit console and let's see if anything got back to us in the meantime. Okay, so we'll make it, let's add some confetti here maybe so we can see it. Okay, so let's try it again. Let's hit sign in with Google. So right now we got null. That's fine. Okay, did the confetti happen now? No confetti. Interesting. So maybe, let's see. All right, so now we're gonna just try to get access to this user over here, okay? It's a little bit tricky to get access to the user, okay? So like, we actually don't even need this. We could just do this, await Supabase and log in, okay? And delete that because that's not actually even gonna give you anything, okay? So that's really it when it comes to logging in. And then if you wanna find out whether you logged in or not, what you wanna do is we wanna use a use effect hook here. And for now, let's just say that this use effect hook fires off every time the page refreshes. And we'll just say const, we'll destructure the user and we'll say Supabase, supabase.auth.session. And that's the user. And if that's not the case, or just make the user null. Okay, so let's do that. Yeah, and then let's just console log and we'll say user. Okay. So let's go ahead and refresh this page. And then we're gonna, once it reloads, we're gonna go ahead and click sign. Use effect is not defined, obviously. So let's go ahead and import that. All right, now it's gonna say use effect. It's not gonna say use effect is defined, but there we go. So currently there is a user, as you can see. Actually, do I even need to? I don't need to do that. I could actually just pop in user here and we should be, no, I like the way that I had it. I like the way that I had it. Okay, cool. Now sign in, it's because I had already signed in. I paused the video and signed in, but let's sign in. Okay, for you, it wouldn't say there's a user. Let's do kazi@cleverprogrammer.com. And now I go here and the user right now is null, okay? But watch what happens when I actually hit refresh. So refresh on this page and watch what happens. Okay, boom, this piece of code fired off after the refresh. It saw that there was an active session and now you do have an active user right over here, okay? I don't need this object anymore. Let's go ahead and hit refresh again. And this is our user, right? This is the user. This is all of their data. And we have access to the email, the session ID. This user is authenticated. We have a confirmation for when the email was confirmed. So this is a good, and their last sign-in was detected on July 15th, which is today, a day after my birthday. And so there you have it. You have authentication essentially working. But what we want to do with this authentication is we don't want to like sign in and sign out here. We want to do this kind of at a global level in context and then pass that context around everywhere. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut this, get rid of that. And we're going to go and create our context file. So let's go here. I'm going to create a new folder. It's going to be called context. Okay. Don't put it in. Don't put it there. Let's get it out. Okay. So it should be at the global level. You should have context. Inside of context, we'll have a new file and we'll call it Reddit context.js. Okay. And then in this context file, I'm going to paste that because I'll need access to that piece of code at some point. And we want to do, okay, export const Reddit context. Okay, and we're going to say create context here. We'll need to import. Let's do a lowercase c here. We're going to import it. So we're going to say import create context, use state, use effect, because we're going to need access to all of those as well from React. Okay, and now we're going to create a function called Reddit provider. So I'm going to say export const Reddit provider. Okay, and it's going to have children. So children is going to be, we're going to wrap our entire app inside of here. Okay, children, and then we can pop that use effect in there actually. Okay, so there we go. And then a couple of other things we can do here as well. So let's go const current user set current user, let's say, and we'll say use state null. Okay. And then here, once the user actually exists, I'm going to say set current user to be the active user. Okay. And we'll import Supabase here as well. So I'm going to say Supabase from, and let's go services / Supabase client. Okay. And here I want to do Supabase.auth. And we're going to add a listener as well here, auth stage change. So meaning if you log in or you log out or it's a different user that logs in, we want to track that right away. So this is going to be a actual listener. And listen for the event and the auth session. And then when that changes, we're going to set the current user to whoever is the current user of the auth session. So there we have an active listener. This will pretty much fire off in real time. So this is a good use effect hook to wrap the entire app in. So now the entire app will essentially be listening to who the user is. Okay? And now we want to give access to the entire app for this user. So I'm going to say return. And then inside of this return, we're going to say Reddit context.provider. Okay, Reddit context.provider. And I'm going to go like this, pass in children here. And here I'm going to say value. And we're going to send off the current user. Okay, so this should send off the current user to our entire app. All right, now, so if you're on this page, we're going to wrap the entire app in the authentication. And what we want to do here in order to actually make that happen is we just got to import Reddit provider from context / Reddit context. So once this is imported, now we begin the wrapping of the entire app. So take this component, pop this bad boy right here, Reddit provider, okay, and then wrap up that inside of this, okay, Reddit provider right here. Now it's going to be like, hey, it needs a closing tag, no problem. Or sorry, let's actually put parentheses here because we need to wrap this up in parentheses. Okay, great. And then we can just add a little bit of SEO so our tab and everything looks clean, because right now it just says Reddit -bill -blah blah. That does not look that clean. So let's go ahead and fix that. What's this error saying? Didn't we build context? Am I misspelling anything? Reddit context.js. Did I forget to export? I have exports here. Export const Reddit context. Okay, let's go back to pages, app, tsx from context. Well, let's hit refresh. Let's actually hit yarn dev because app might have crashed. Yep, it did. So let's hit yarn dev. And then let's sit here and refresh. We'll give it a second for it to wake up. Once it's awake, we should be good to go. That should be enough for this. Okay, while this is loading, okay, do we still have an error actually? Reddit provider, give it a component, pages, boom, boom. That looks pretty good to me. The error is happening inside of the context. Okay. Got it. I just wasn't reading the error. It's being silly. So in my context, I'm going to open a new tab here. In context, I'm doing something silly. So I need to be doing Reddit contact.provider, I believe. So it's the same tag that opens it and then the same tag that closes it. I think that's the problem. And then our entire app, we're giving it access to the current user or the logged in user or whatever. Okay. Set current is not defined. Okay. So that is happening in context. Let's go back and it's set current user, not set current. So let's go set current user just like that. Okay. Let's refresh. All right. So now we're good. Okay. So now it's doing the thing that it's supposed to be doing in context. Our app is wrapped in that. Let's say, we'll say user, and then we'll say hi. So this will tell us that we're coming from the context file. Let's go ahead to console and we can see if I sign in, let's sign in with Google. Boom, let's choose this. And then our context file right now is null, obviously, but let's refresh and you'll see that it'll have a user on it. Boom, we have a user. Okay, and when I look at this user, I have all of that user's data, okay, right here. And so you can see that now the user is actually being passed around, and our entire app has access to context now, because the entire app is essentially wrapped in context. So that's why the whole app has access to it. Okay, so this is really nice. We have this. Now we need to make conditional rendering happen so that when the user is actually logged in, it immediately brings them to the home page rather than the login page. See what I'm saying? So let's go to our index.tsx. So pages, index.tsx. I'll just open a new tab here. And in here, what I would like to do, okay, this is a TypeScript error message, which is just, it has an implicit type any. You could do this and the error would go away, but the app will still work. This is just a warning. Okay, so this will still work. I can just leave that. That's fine. If they have any types, you can give them any, or you can just leave them as is. Now here, we're gonna get our user from our context that we've just created. Okay, so let's go ahead and import our context. So I'm gonna say import a Reddit context, and we're gonna say context / Reddit context. And now what I want to do is I want to actually get access to our current user. Okay, and we'll get it from context, Reddit context, just like that. Okay, use context. Okay, so let's get the use context hook as well from React. So we'll say use context. We can get that from React, I believe. Yep, got that hook. Perfect. So now we're using the context. We're getting the current user from the context. And now we can just set the conditional rendering right here. And I can actually just say, I can remove all of this and I can say is current user. If the current user is logged in, you see how it brought me to this page right over here. But say I was not logged in, so I'll do no, I'm not, current user is not logged in. It will bring me to this page right over here. So this is now working perfectly, right? Hey, you're logged in, cool, send them to the home page. Hey, you're not logged in, send them to the login page. Now, I mean, this is smooth as butter. Okay, so we have access to user overall. We're passing them around. We're very happy with this. Okay, now this fetcher here, we can actually put this in context as well and then get it from context. So I'll actually just get it from context already and then grab this. Let's go to our context, create this and pass it, because we'll need access to it actually in a few different places. So I'll just go ahead and do fetcher just like that. Okay, so current user, fetcher, and we're destructuring the fetcher here, and then we're just using that fetcher. Okay, so everything should be working as expected. If I go in, if I click or refresh or whatever, everything should be fine. Okay, all right, great. It's detecting I'm logged in, so it's bringing me to the right page. That's great as well. Just leave it like this. Now, really, the last thing I want to do here is save and update the user. So what do I mean by that? If I go to my database and we go into table, you'll see we don't have a table called users and we have no users in here, but there's a user that's logged in. So we want to actually build a database of everybody that's logging in. So what we want to do here is I want to create a function, okay, that does that for me. So we'll call it save and update user. Okay. And what this function will do is it'll update or insert a new user. Okay. So it's going to be a very simple function. And this is very cool part about Supabase that I really love, where you can actually add in a new user in a really cool way. And I'll show you that method. So first, we're just going to add a guard clause. And hey, if there's no current user, just return, like just end it. Okay, don't even do anything else. Just end the app, end the function, and don't run this function. All right. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to go into Supabase and we're going to go into the users table. Okay, and we're going to upsert. And this means update or insert. So it's beautiful because if you have an existing user that just logged in, it's not going to bug you and crash. But if that user doesn't exist in your database, it's going to create that user and add that user to your database. It's not going to create a whole new user. It's going to simply go to that user and update that particular user's profile picture. I love that about this, right? That makes it so much nicer and cleaner. Okay, so upsert is a function. It'll take in an object of which you're trying to create. So we're trying to create here is current user. We're going to get their metadata and grab their metadata.email. Okay, we'll grab their name. Okay, and then, let's go ahead and do full underscore name. And then we'll grab their profile image. And let's go all the way to the end. And we're going to say avatar URL. And look at TypeScript being super helpful, right? It's saying, hey, it cannot find name Supabase. So we already know we didn't import it. We don't have to sit here and wait for a crash to happen. So I'll say import Supabase from, services, Supabase clients, I believe. Okay, /services. Let's see here. Yep. /services /Supabase client. Perfect. We got that. Okay. So that's what this does. Save and update user. And now we just want to actually call it. So we're going to have a use effect hook here and another use effect hook. And we're just simply going to basically save and update user. Okay. And then basically run whenever the current user changes. Okay. So let's hit refresh and let's see if there's anything happening here. And if there isn't, then we can simply go ahead and create a new user or even log out and try to create a new user. Let's put a console log statement here that tells us whether this line is running or not. Console log save user. Okay, so let's refresh here and see what's happening. Refresh. Okay, so the save user looks like it ran. Okay, let's see if anything happened here. And if this ever happens where it goes loop-de-doop-de in circles like that, just end the server and then just start it again. But end it here and also stop it here. So end it both places. And then just go ahead and do yarn dev again. And you should be good. Okay, now let's wait for it to load. Hope it loads perfectly. Save user fired. Let's see if anything happens. So I'll refresh here. We'll refresh all tables as well. Still nothing. So the problem we're actually facing here is since it's from, right, it's trying to pull an existing table. So it's not actually going to create the table for us. So we're going to need to actually create a table. So we'll create a users table and it'll have email and name and profile image. So I imagine this could be text, this could be text, and this could be text as well because it's a URL. All right, so we'll hit create new table. I'm going to call it users. And then we're going to say created. We could have a created now on this, I guess. That's fine. That shouldn't hurt. And then here we're going to say name. And this is going to be text. And then we're going to go ahead and add another column. And then we will say profile image. Okay. And this will also be text with a capital I, by the way. And then we will add. We can actually, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Profile image is fine. And then we'll say email. Okay. And this will also be text. Okay, great. Now go ahead and save. Let's try to run this now. So I'm going to refresh here and let's see if it fires off and it registers a new user. So let's refresh. Save user did fire off. Let's refresh our whole page. Let's see if it works. Boom. There we go. We just got a new user. And now watch this. What we can also do is we can have it fix on a specific conflict. Okay, let's give Upsert another object here. So let's give it a second argument. And this argument is going to be based on how it's going to resolve the conflict. And we'll say on conflict email. Okay, so when it's time to resolve the conflict, resolve it on email. So there's two arguments that we've given it. One is this. Okay, second one is that. Got it? So now it's gonna, once it sees the email, that's what it's gonna use to resolve the conflict. And let's give it a try. So let's try changing the name to Mahatma Gandhi. Hit save, hit refresh here. Let's go to Supabase. Let's refresh. And since it has Kazi, a clever programmer email, it should only update the user. Okay, so let's refresh here. And let's see if it has updated the user or not. So the reason why we have 2 of these here right now is because we didn't add on conflict right away. So that's why we have it. But if we go and right click and we delete this row right now, and now if you refresh or you refresh your app as well, so it fires off the save user function, it's not going to duplicate. Just make sure your save user fired off, and it did. And you can see it didn't duplicate the user. If I refresh, you still won't see any kind of duplication, hopefully. There we go. Perfect. Okay, now why Mahatma Gandhi isn't getting updated in here is because I have this function to only fire off when the current user changes, and the current user isn't changing because the current user is still me, and it's been me the entire friggin' time. So let's remove that for just a second, and let's say there's no dependency, and it should fire off every single time we refresh the page. So let's go ahead and save this. Let's go ahead and refresh this. Let's go back to our Supabase. Let's hit this nice little refresh here so we don't have to refresh the whole page. Let's refresh and refresh again. Let's go into email, and what we need to do is we need to actually enable is unique, because once you do that, Upsert actually starts working. So let's go and enable, because we want to make sure that the values are unique. If they're not, it wouldn't make sense. So let's go ahead and save it. All right, so let's go ahead and save this, and let's restart. And we should have a user with gandhi@gmail.com inside of our Supabase with this name. And there you go. The first user is Rafik Kazi, which is perfectly fine. This is exactly what we expected because I logged in, and then I changed it to Mahatma Gandhi, and I can see gandhi@gmail.com. Let's try to keep the email the same. So we're going to go ahead and do this whole thing right here, and we're just going to say .email, and let's see if it can update my name. So I'm giving it my exact email address, and let's see if it knows how to update. There we go. So Upsert worked, right? Boom, it's updating my name over here based on just matching the email. So that was super cool. Or it updated it right here, kazi@cleverprogrammer.com. So Upsert is working perfectly normally. That was a check. Okay, now let's go ahead and just do this, and let's change that to full_name. Okay, and now it should be good. If I go ahead and refresh here, it should update Mahatma Gandhi from whatever it is right now to the current user, which is Rafik Kazi, and that perfectly over here. Rafik Kazi, smooth like butter. And there you have it. We can now add users. When they log in, we can add and update a user inside of our database based on logging in. So our authentication and our user tracking is working perfectly. Now we need to start moving on to being able to add comments. But first, we need to work on being able to show the post detail page. So for example, when I go to this app right here, and if I click into a certain post, I can go inside of a post, right? So this is a detail view of a post. So that's what we're gonna build. So now let's go ahead, work on making that post detail page. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead inside of my pages. We will go inside of, we'll create a new folder here, and this will be called, let's create a folder. This will be called post. So this will be a page for a post. Okay, and then we're gonna create a new file here. Okay, and this file, we're just gonna call it ID, okay, .js, just like that, because that ID is gonna be pretty much dynamic every single time we come to this page. Okay, so this page is gonna be a fairly simple page. Let's go ahead and just create the front end for this. So we're gonna say post view, and we'll say return. And in my return, let's just return a div for now. And in this div, we will add a h1 that just says post view, okay, or post detail or whatever. Let's go ahead and say export default post view. And yeah, that's it. So now let's see if we can actually route to this page. Okay, so we're gonna try that. So let's see if I can go to this URL here and add a /post/1. Okay, and let's see if it actually routes us to it. Boom, there you go. We're getting post detail. So the routing is working excellently. So now we can actually start styling it and showing everything here. So first of all, we're gonna have the post actually show up. So we're gonna import the post component. So import post from, and we'll import the post from, I believe, common. So let's go back to components. Let's go to common and let's go post. So the first thing obviously it should show is the post. So there we go. So now it's showing us the post. Now, which post is it going to show? We need to actually give it the selected post. So let's destructure this and give it the selected post. Now, where's selected post coming from? So the selected post can actually come from the Reddit context. Okay, so we can actually add that in there. So let's go to context. Okay, and then in context, we're gonna go ahead and say selected post, set selected post, just like this. And we're gonna set it to null in the start because there's gonna be no selected post in the start, obviously. Okay, and current user, yep, this is fine. So now, how are we going to set what the selected post is? First, we're just gonna pass that information around. So we're gonna pass this through our app, selected post, and this hook for set selected post. Now let's go ahead to our post component. So let's go components, common, post. And inside of this component, we're now gonna get access to some of the posts. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and import a few things that we'll need access to. I'm gonna import use context from React. Let's import Reddit context. Oh wow, it actually can pull it up. That's cool. Okay, import Reddit context from right there. And then let's do Reddit spider. Okay, import Reddit spider. Let's see if it does it. Boom, it does. Okay, so we're gonna actually we don't need the provider. We just need the context. So our entire app is already wrapped in the provider, so we don't need access to that. And then we just need to get the use router. So we're gonna say from next/router. Okay, great. So we have access to all of this stuff. Now what? Now what we're gonna do is let's get access to the router. We're gonna say use router. And then we're gonna grab our selected post. We're gonna say const selected set selected post. We're gonna grab that hook so we can actually set which post is the selected one. Okay, don't need to see the upvotes anymore. Set selected post. Okay, and now we're gonna create a little function. It's gonna do this for us. So I'm gonna say navigate to post, and we'll call our hook set selected post, and it will destructure the ID, title, content, author, created at, upvote, downvote. Okay, and then it'll push us to post / the ID. Okay, whatever the ID of that specific post is. Okay, and then when we want to call this is we just want to call this on click. So if we go down, we have, so this is a specific post, right? So since it's a specific post, we already have access to that ID. We already have access to that title. We already have access to that author. So we already have access to all the information about that selected post. Okay, we can even like just destructure the selected post if we wanted to. Okay, or destructure this, but we don't have a name for it. So that's why we're manually writing it here. So set selected post, and then we're just gonna have an on click here. So what we want to wrap the on click to is right above the author. Okay, we can add this post div. This is what we're gonna add the on click to. So we can say on click and then just navigate to post. Okay. So let's give this a try and let's see if this works. So we're having an error with sets selected post. So we're having this error in the ID page, right? So now we will need context here, obviously, because that's where it is. So let's go ahead and get import use context from React. And then here we're going to say, we're going to go ahead and say const set selected post is from use context, Reddit context. Okay. We got to get the Reddit context as well. So we're going to go ahead and import it. So I'm going to say import Reddit context from context/Reddit context. Okay. So now we have access to the set selected post, and now it'll actually be able to pull it up in here. So let's go ahead and refresh this. See if you have any problems. Set selected. Oh, sorry. Selected post is what we want to do. Selected post. So we're pulling that out and we're setting that over here. Okay. So let's go back to our home page. And now let's pick up post, build medium with TypeScript. So let's give that a try. I'll click into it. And now it says created at is not defined. And the error is happening in post.js. So let's go to post. And it says created at is not defined. Simple. We just have to destructure it here because we already have access to it from the database. Okay, so let's go build medium with TypeScript. Now it says upvote is not defined. So it's because up votes and down votes. We pluralize it. Let's click now. There we go. Now we can actually navigate to this new page, and you see it's even pulling that specific post ID. So if I go here to another post, see it says post 3. Pull another post, you can see it says post 1, right? So we can see that it's working exactly how we want it to. We are now able to navigate to that post, pass that data through the router, and then the router pushes us and takes us to that page with that specific post. Okay, so let's go ahead to our ID page and let's keep working on it. Let's go ahead, create a little bit of styling here. Okay, so let's go to this page. Let's get a little bit of styling so it's not just touching the top so much. So let's go ahead and import header. Okay, so we're going to say import header from, and we'll get the header from our components/header. So now at the top, we can actually just put our header. So let's go right here and I'll say header. Great. Our header is showing up now at the top. That's perfect. Okay. So we now want to also create a wrapper around this entire thing. So inside of this div, I'm going to say class name, and we'll do style.wrapper. Okay, and it's going to error out because it doesn't know what style is. So let's create a style. And this is going to be the wrapper. Okay, we're going to make it background black, give it a text white, just so it has like some breathing room. Okay. And then the post, we're actually going to put the post inside of a container wrapper. So let's put a container first. Let's go to div and we'll go class name and we'll say style.container and we'll add this post inside of here. I'll format it a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and create styling for our container. So we'll do MX auto, flex, give it a full width. Let's go like this, flex 1, and then give it some spacing, and then we'll give it padding on the y-axis, so of 5 rem about, and then padding of 6 on the x-axis. Okay, there we go. So that looks better. And now we're going to have a container wrapper underneath this. So we're going to say div, say class name, style, container wrapper. Let's wrap this bad boy in there. Okay. And let's create the styling for this now, container wrapper. And this is going to be just full width, space, and then we're going to say large. What's happening here? Okay, now it's looking great. Okay, so now our post is coming through. We're getting all that post data and we're able to show it. So let's go back home. Let's go ahead and click this. And there we go. We can actually see everything passing through, okay, through the URL parameters. So this is the selected post. Essentially, that's what's happening here. Okay, now in the post view, we want to do a couple of more things. So we're going to go ahead and add a router. Say router, use router, obviously. So let's import router if we don't have it. Import use router, right, from next/router. So there we go. And now we're going to create a use effect hook. And this use effect hook is going to say, hey, if the selected post is, I want you to just push me back to the home page. Okay, so if there's nothing, then push me back to the home page. Don't keep me on that page because otherwise they're going to show me like a post with an NN or something like that. And that just looks ugly. We don't want that. Okay, use effect. Great. So let's go here. Okay, so yeah, whenever it's like in or is broken, it just takes us back to the home page. So for error purposes, it makes our app just like a little bit cleaner. So we got the styling for our post done. And now inside of the content wrapper, we want to have posts. We also want to have, I'm going to just create a comment here. We also want to have save comment. Okay, so it's going to be, or like basically new comment. Okay, so we'll just call it save comment. Okay, this will give you the ability to add new comment. So that component we'll need. And then this another component we'll need will be called comments. And this will just show all of the existing comments. We're going to need both of these components right here. So first, let's go ahead and create the ability to read comments. And let's go ahead and do that now. Now let's add the ability to retrieve comments. So we'll create a new folder inside of components. And this folder will be called comments, comment section. And then inside of this folder, I'm going to create comments as a component. Okay, so that's thing number one. Let's do const comments, and we'll say return, and we'll say div, and then just like the usual, we will actually put a h1 here. I'll say comments. Let's export this as default comments. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to create an API backend, like backend API request endpoint for this. Okay, so inside of pages, go to API. Okay, and then inside of API, what you want to do is create a new file and say get comments.js. Okay, so what we'll do here is it'll look very similar to our get posts. We'll just have a few different changes. Okay, so let's import Supabase first. So I'm going to say supa from, and we'll say services/Supabase client. And then we'll export default async. We don't even need to like give this function. And then here's what we'll do. We'll try the following and we'll catch the error. And we'll just, if there is an error, it's a server-side error. So we'll return error code 500. And then we'll just send the error saying, hey, error fetching comments. Okay, and this is an object. All right, so we've error handled. And now we'll say, hey, get me the query. Okay, we can console log it just so you could see it. And then we're gonna get the data and we'll await supabase.comment.from comments. Okay, we need to create this table. So let's just do that now before we forget. Let's go ahead into, let's say new table. Okay, so I just clicked right there, new table. And then let's go ahead and say comments. And comments will have a couple of columns here. So we'll have created at, obviously. We'll have author. Author is just going to be text in this case. We will have text. So like what you want to actually write, that'll obviously be text. Then we will have post ID. Okay, and then we'll just leave that to be integer 8. And then we'll have user email. Okay, and this will also be type text. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and hit save here. Save. Awesome. So now we have comments saved. Let's just add a comment. So we will say author is Rafik Kazi. Wow, this post is absolutely unbelievable. Okay, and we'll say that this is for post ID 2. So we'll say this is for the build medium with TypeScript post. And if I actually look at the URL, if I full screen this, you could see that the ID is 2 there. So I'm going to attach it to this one manually. So I'll say post ID 2 and user email. I'll just write this manually as well. Later, obviously, we will code it up so it's all dynamic and all that good stuff. So we've added a comment. Okay. And then let's go and select all comments. We will inner join the comments with users. So it will inner join it on probably email or whatever. Actually, here's what we will inner join it on. We'll inner join this on post ID. Okay, and we'll give it the post ID from our query parameters. So from our front end, we'll hit our back end, we'll hit this endpoint at API/get comments. We'll hit this endpoint, and then we'll actually pass it in the query parameters what that post's ID is from here. So we'll pass it down into requests, and then we'll grab it from our requests, and we'll just say, hey, interjoin these and match it on post ID. Okay, and then so this will grab all the comments, and then we'll just say res status 200, and we'll send. Okay, beautiful. So our endpoint is now done. Now let's go ahead and retrieve these comments. So now let's go inside of our comments function. So let's go here into components, comment section, comments, and we're gonna retrieve it here. We're gonna use SWR here as well. So let's go ahead and import it. So we're gonna say use SWR from SWR. Okay. We're gonna also import a few things like use of state and use effect from React. And then inside the comments, what I want to do is I want to basically follow their state. So I want to track their state here with this, and it'll be an empty array at the start. Okay. And let's also get our fetcher from our context. So we'll say this Reddit context, and let's go ahead and import Reddit context. Okay, from, let's see where it's at, Reddit context from context, Reddit context. There we go. So we're getting our fetcher, and now we can actually just do this. So data, and we'll say use SWR, and we'll hit our API endpoint. So we'll say API/get comments question mark post ID. Give it the actual post ID. Let's make it template literal. So give a little backtick here. And then we will use SWR. Let's hit enter here. Let's give a comma. Let's give it a fetcher. And then let's give it a refresh interval of 200. Okay, so what this will basically do is we'll pull all of our comments through this. And then now we want to call our use effect hook, and inside of our use effect hook we're going to say, hey, if there's no data, just return, because there's literally nothing to do. Otherwise, set comments to whatever is inside of data, and run this only when the data changes, because you don't need to keep running it again and again. So if a new comment gets added to the database, then run it. If a comment gets edited, then run it. Otherwise, don't run it. Okay. And now we should have actually access to all of our comments and should be able to show the comments at this point. Okay, let's just double check everything. Comments will also need access to post ID. That's an important part. That's how we're giving this post ID right over here, right there. It's coming from here. And then we can just loop through the comments or do whatever we want or show the comments. So let's go ahead and console log, and we'll say comments. Okay, and let's see if anything shows up here. So let's look inside a console. Okay, and let's hit refresh and see if anything shows up in the console at all. Let's put a little emoji here. I'll say cookie. Let's refresh. Let's go ahead. Let's make sure that the comment section is actually like available and showing up, because that's one thing that we might not have done. So we have this comments component. Now we have to just make sure that we're actually running this. So let's go to our ID. So let's go to pages. Let's go to post pages, and let's go to ID. Okay. And there we go. This is our comments component right here. We can just now call it. Okay. And then what we want to do is import it. Import comments from components slash, okay, and another dot components slash comment section. And then we're going to say comments, the capital C. And then we want to pass our comments the post ID. So let's go ahead and give it the post ID, and we'll say selected post.id. Okay, that should do the trick. So now let's click into this. Boom, use context is not defined, but we didn't get any errors before that. So let's go back into comments, and let's import use context. So we're going to say import use context from React. Actually, we can just do it right there. Let's get rid of this here. Let's hit save and refresh. Okay, let's go back to our home page. All right, let's click build medium with TypeScript. And there we go. Okay, we're getting something. Something is happening now. At least comments is now showing up here. So that's a good start. And we should soon be getting our actual comments as well. And then we should be able to show them too eventually. All right, to debug this issue, let's just go to get-comments here, and let's also console log data. And we're only going to see this inside of our console right here. So keep an eye out on your shell. Okay, and let's go homepage, and then let's click build medium with TypeScript, right? Because this is the one that has the ID of 2. And you can actually see that we're getting back null. So on our back end, we're actually getting back null. So the problem is happening somewhere on the server side, and we have to debug. We're going wrong somewhere right here because we're getting the post ID 2, and that's correct, but we're going wrong somewhere. All right, so if we try to actually debug this one step at a time, like what this error is, let's comment out this EQ line, and let's also comment out this. Let's not do any inner joins, and let's just select from the comments, and let's see if we're getting back data from the comments. And it actually looks like we are. So we are getting back comments. Is the inner join, and this EQ is not working. Let me remove this here. We don't need to parse it. The reason why this is happening is that we need to actually create a relationship between these databases. So go ahead, go to comments, go to user email, hit edit column. And then once you're inside of here, hit add foreign key relation. And then what we can actually do is let's add this to user's email. 1 second. Yep. So let's create that relationship between the user email to the actual users that is in authentication, the authenticated users, and their email. Okay, let's hit save. And that's the relationship we want to have there. Boom. Now, once that relationship is created, if you come back like magic, it's already working. Super beautiful. So we're getting back the actual comments that are for this specific post because we just had to create that relationship between them. Now that we're good with that, let's see. I can actually see if I show you this cookie over here where I'm like printing that comment, it's actually getting printed out just fine. So let's go back to post ID. Okay. And when we call comments here, seems like the comments are showing up in the console log. But what we want to do is we obviously want comments to actually show up on the screen, right? So let's go ahead and style comments now in a way where we can actually see it on the screen. So I'm going to go components, comment section. Let's go to comments, and let's continue styling it. Now, how do we actually show it on the screen? Let's essentially build a comment component that's going to allow us to see it on the screen. Let's just build it raw, just pop it in here and then go from there. So if I look at the final app and we go inside of a post here, you can see that I have some kind of wrapper. Right? Inside of that, I have information about the author. I have an image. I have the date. I have these up and down votes, and I have these actions right there. And then this thing right over here, right? This thing here, almost imagine like this is a component. This is like one comment. Okay. And then that one comment just keeps repeating over and over again for however many comments there are. And then outside of that entire thing, we just have a wrapper. Okay. So let's go ahead and create our loop already. So I'm going to say, if there are comments, then make this, otherwise don't make this, right? So let's go ahead and do comments, and I'll say comments, comma, ID, and I'll do this, and we'll open this bad boy up. Actually, we'll have to close it too. So boom, right there. Okay. And then we write whatever code we want inside of here. So let's start off with an image. And let's import next image if we don't have it yet. So import image from next image. And then we're going to give it comment.users profile image. So we have access to that comment. So let's grab that comment users, because we have that reverse relationship now, and grab that user's profile image. And then class name will do style.profile image. And then layout will be fill. Okay, just like that. Okay, great. We do need this. Okay, so we're closing this paren here. What's the error? All right, let's close the image tag here. So we're gonna go boom. Now the image tag is closed. Now there should be no more errors. Let's hit refresh and let's see if any image shows up here. Okay, and just in case if our entire thing crashed, you can always kill it and come back and yarn dev it as well, and that should get it back up and running. All right, now we're getting a new error. It says style is not defined. Not a problem. Just go ahead here. Let's go ahead const style. Okay, and now that style is defined, that error should go away swiftly. Okay, and then we're going to create styling for this in a second. So let's take a look at this page. That doesn't look like the right page. Okay, let's go back to our home page and then go to build medium with TypeScript. I'm going to click into it. Now we're getting an error that this image right here is not configured in our next.js. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go into next config, and right here, simply add that in and hit save, and that error should go away. So whenever you update the config, you'll have to kill the file and then you'll have to yarn dev again. Okay, so that's something you always have to do whenever you update next config. That's the only way it's going to show changes. Sometimes you have to do that when you're updating environment variables as well. Okay, so let's go back to the home page. And then once we go back to the home page, then we're going to go ahead to build medium with TypeScript. Let's click it. And there you go. Now it's showing the data and it's showing the image. Granted, that image is a little bit bigger than what we're going for. So let's go ahead to our comments, and we see that the image is filled. Now let's style the image. So let's go ahead and go profile image. And the styling that we're going to have for a profile image is just going to be object contain. Okay. And the main thing we want to do around this image is we want to add wrapper for all of this. So we're going to add a wrapper right around this. And I'm going to say class name is going to be style.profile image container. Okay, and we'll wrap this in that way. And then let's go ahead and style profile image container. So let's go back up, boom. And the profile image container, the styling we're gonna have here is height, a small height. We're gonna give it a small specific width. We're gonna make the overflow hidden. Rounded is gonna be full, and we're gonna make it relative. I just had to restart my server, and we have our comment and our image showing up. Okay, the styling is showing up. It's a small little circle. So that's great. Now, I want to actually create a post info container. So we're going to create a div, and this div is actually going to wrap up this entire bad boy right over here. Okay. Let's go and boom, like that. Okay. We're going to give it a class name, style.postInfo container. And then let's go ahead and just style this. So we'll add it here. And then post info container is going to be flex. We're going to give a gap, and we'll go 0.4 rem on this. So we got our info container. Now inside of our info container, we want to add everything else like the author name, all of that stuff. So let's go get outside of this div, and we're going to add a span tag. And in this, we're going to go comment.author. And then we'll put a dot here like that. Okay, boom, we got comment.author Rafik Hazi. Okay, we got a little dot. We'll do another span tag. And then this one is going to be for the date. So we're going to dynamically pull dates instead of hard-coded dates. So we're going to use time ago, and we'll need to import time ago. So we're going to go ahead and say import time ago from JavaScript time ago. Okay, and it's time ago with a capital A. And we'll need to install this because it doesn't know what this is right now. It's JavaScript time ago. So in order to install this, Let's just do JavaScript. Let's go to packages on the left-hand side and just do JavaScript time ago. And let's see if it comes up. Yes, it does. So let's install it. And then that error should go away soon. Okay, now that error went away. Let's go back a page. Let's go to the home page of the app. And then let's go ahead to build medium with TypeScript. Okay, now it says time ago is not defined. So we're gonna do the following. We're gonna say const time ago, add default locale. Okay, and we're gonna make it en. And let's also import this. So I'll say import en from JavaScript time ago / locale / en. Okay. So I've set the default locale to en, and then we'll say time ago, new time ago, and we'll give it in US. Okay. All right. No locale data has been registered for any of the locales. So if you're having errors, just go ahead. You can restart your REPL and you should be good. Now it's saying, hey, these can't be objects. They're not valid. So let's just say hi here and let's see if that works. Okay. And let's go back to our home page and then let's click it. There we go. Our hi is showing up. Very good. Now what we want to do here is instead of hi, obviously I want to show the time. So we're going to go ahead and say time ago.format and we'll say new date comment.created at. And let's give that a try. Let's go back to make sure you click homepage first. Go to homepage first and then click build medium with TypeScript. Okay, now it says invalid number. All right, so what we want to do is we want to pass in Twitter -now and it'll give it a Twitter-like styling for the time. Okay, and then let's go back to homepage and then click build medium with whatever. Now it's saying a different error. It's saying invalid time value. So we said format new date comment.created at, and we said Twitter now invalid time value. All right, so in order to not get just stuck on this, what we're gonna do is let's just comment this out for a second. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna comment this out. So let's go like this, and then let's go here. Let's end the comments, and we'll say that. So let's comment this out for now, and let's just keep making progress. Okay, so let's go to build medium with TypeScript. Okay, we see Rafik Kazi. I'm just gonna say June 15th for now. That should show up right there. Okay, great. So we have that. Now the next thing we want to do is we're done with the span tag of this. This is also in a span tag, so we're out of that. Okay, so we could go span, wrap the June 15th in span, remove the span from here. We're essentially just commenting out that time ago thing. Okay, but keeping everything in a nice little span tag. Okay. Okay. And next up, what I want to do is I want to create a new div here. Oops. Okay, let's see. We're closing all the span tags. All right, let's just stay inside of this div because otherwise we're going to have an error. So let's create a div here, and this is going to be comment text. So it's whatever the text of that comment is. So you can see, wow, this post is absolutely unbelievable. So that's showing up now. That's very good. Let's create another div here, and we'll give it a class name of style.icons. Okay, we'll give, let's go in here and we'll say span, and I'll say class name style.icon. Okay, and then we'll give it an upvote icon here. So we'll go upvote icon. Okay, and we'll have to obviously import this. So let's go ahead and import our upvote icon and downvote icon. So let's just get them both. Boom. Get access to upvote icon and downvote icon. Okay. And now if that ever happens where it says, hey, I don't know what the ID is, just go back to the home page and then click back in and you should be there. Okay. So we got the upvote icon. Now let's get our downvote icon to show up as well. So we'll do span here. We'll say 0. We will do another span tag here. And then we'll say, oh, this is class name style.icon. Okay, and then inside of this span tag, I'm gonna say downvote icon, just like that. So now that should show up as well. Okay, so boom, we're done with that part of the downvote icon. Okay, let's create another span here, span tag, and then inside of this span tag, we will have a class name. We'll say style.reply. Okay, and then in here, I'm gonna have a chat alt icon, and I'll give it a small height, so it's not too big, and a small width. Okay, and then we'll end this, and then we're gonna go ahead and add another span here, and we're gonna say reply. And for chat alt icon, we need to obviously import that. So import from, and I think this one comes from hero icons, if I'm not mistaken. But let's just double check. Yep, it does. Hero icon / react / outline. Okay, so now, okay, again, get this error. No worries. Go back to the home page and then click build medium with TypeScript. And there you go. Okay, now all of this is showing up. Now what we have to do soon is styling. But for now, let's just keep going. Let's finish this part up. Okay, let's create a few more span tags here, and we're gonna say class name is style.icon, and this one is gonna be give. The next one is going to be share. The next one after that is gonna be save, and then we'll have follow. Okay, so that, and now let's create styling for icon, because we're seeing that in too many places, and we haven't styled it yet. So let's go ahead and style it. And all we're going to do here is really just give it a color of a little darker gray. So let's do that for this. And then, so that should style it. And then we're going to also style icons. We'll say flex gap of 0.4 rem. There we go. So that's looking better. Now we want to obviously wrap the entire thing as well pretty soon and make sure that's all good. So we have our post info container, and then we want to wrap the entire thing inside of a comment container. So we're going to go ahead and go div, say class name, and I'll say style.comment container. All right. And we'll take this whole thing for the comment container and just go ahead and wrap it. Okay. Now let's go ahead and style our comment container. So let's go here, comment container. And for the comment container, we're going to go ahead and add a little margin at the top, like on the y-axis. We'll give it 1 rem. We'll give it flex and flex column and a gap of 1 rem here as well. Okay, and now that sign, if you ever see that sign, that usually means the REPL is dead. So let's just simply kill it, and let's go yarn dev again. Okay, and then we will wait for it to come back to life. And then we should be good. Okay, let's just go to the home page. This, okay, great. So I have all of these things here. Comment container. The styling is not showing up right now, which basically means that it's most likely that the replit is down. I can give it a background of black or white rather. And nope, it's not showing up. So that just means the replit is down. So we got to get the replit back up. All right. So when the replit sometimes goes down, make sure you hit stop right here as well. Okay. Go ahead and hit stop, because now it's creating these different ports. And whenever it does, that just means something bad's about to happen. Okay. So kill it here, hit stop here. And if none of that is happening, just hit refresh as well. So it's just a clean slate. You're restarting it from scratch. And now it says connected at the bottom, which was a good sign. Okay. And I copy every time before I refresh, I copy my files. That way, if something happens, I can just select everything and paste everything directly from my clipboard. All right. So the post info container actually ends right underneath this span tag right here with the date. Okay. So let's go ahead and end that real quick. So we're going to go ahead and just cut one of these divs, because those don't need to be there. And we're going to paste it right here, because that's where it belongs. Okay. And now, boom, look at that. The whole thing is just looking already way better. Okay. Now all the styling, everything is making sense. Now all we need to do is add this entire thing inside of a wrapper. Okay, and we don't need this h1 here anymore. Okay, let's go ahead and add this inside of a wrapper. So I'm going to say div, okay, and end the div outside of that for loop. So let's end that right there. Or actually, it was already ended. Wait, no, I'm just being silly. Hold on. Sorry, this is the div that's going to be the wrapper, and this div can just pretty much be empty. So it doesn't even need to be called a div. Just go ahead and make it empty here. Okay, this div is the more important one, and this one is going to be called class name style.wrapper, and then we're going to go ahead and style this. So go ahead and say wrapper. Okay, and the styling for the wrapper is going to be, we're going to give it a background and then a padding of 4. Okay, there we go. So now the comment is showing up beautifully. Okay, and so if we have multiple comments, they're all going to show up just like this. Okay, if we look at our final version of our app, the final version of our app looks very similar, besides that this is gray here and this isn't, and then reply is also incorrect. So let's see what's happening here. We probably need to just style a couple of more things. So we styled icons, and now we'll need to style reply because we didn't style that yet. So let's go reply, and we'll say flex items center, gap of 0.2 rem, text, and we'll say 818384. So it's a little gray color. And there we go. Now reply and everything is looking great. That's awesome. Okay, now our comments are looking really nice. Okay, is there any styling left for it that we have to do? We have profile image, we have profile image container, profile info, post info container, icons, profile image, wrapper, reply. So styling wise, we're all good here. And now if we have multiple comments, this should show up very nicely. So let's insert a new row. Let's go ahead and say author is David Rakosi. We will say this is my fight song. Let's put a glove here. And then post ID will be 2. So it'll be associated with the medium with TypeScript post. And the user email will be david@cleverprogrammer.com. We will hit save. And there's an error. Because we probably don't have David inside of our database. So let's go here to our tables and let's go look at our users. Who do we have? We have gandhi@gmail.com. So let's go ahead and copy that email, and we can actually even view data, which is really cool. So let's go ahead and paste this. Let's hit save. Okay, that worked. Beautiful. And look at this. It's showing up. This is my fight song. That is great. That looks really freaking cool too. And it's pulling the data from our database. And we figured out the error with the time ago thing. The error that was happening actually is it's created. There's no such field as created at like this. There is a field created _at. And now what we can do is I can go ahead and uncomment this bad boy right here. And it should work. Okay, boom, there we go. So now it's Twitter style. So it's like this comment was posted 1 minute ago. This comment was posted 58 minutes ago. So that looks very nice. So now that problem is completely solved as well. And there you go. Now we have the ability to get the comments of any given post. Beautiful. Now, pretty much one of the last things that we're going to add is the ability to actually add a new comment. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, so now the last thing we're going to work on is the ability to save a comment, aka write a comment. So this component right over here. Okay, so you could call it new comment, you could call it write comment, save comment, whatever you want. Okay, so this is what we're going to be making right here. So when I'm thinking that, I'm immediately thinking we're going to be creating a new component. So let's go inside of our components here and let's go inside a comment section. Let's create a new thing, new file, and we'll call it save comment.js. Okay, and now inside of save comments, obviously we're going to do save comment. Okay, and we're going to destructure post ID here. And let's go ahead and do div. Let's go ahead and do h1 save comment, and let's go ahead and export default save comments. Okay, so now we have this. Let's make sure that save comment is actually showing up where it needs to. So save comment shows up in our ID page. Okay, so basically let's go ahead to our pages and let's go ahead to our post pages and let's go ahead into our ID page. I'm going to open a new tab right here and let's import save comment from, and we're going to say components slash comment section slash save comment. And then we just got to render this save comment component out right over here. Like we added that little note for ourselves earlier, and we're just going to go ahead and say save comment and let's render that out. And hopefully we should see something along the lines of save comment. Okay. And this should show up on the post detail page. So let's see, do we see it? Save comment anywhere? No, we don't. Okay. Let's go back to the home page. Let's click back into this. Okay. So I don't see save comment anywhere. So let's go check why that's happening. So let's go to save comment. I clearly have an H1 that says, because I'm not actually returning this as a component. So it's not returning it. That's the problem. So there we go. Now save comment is showing up. Okay. So let's go back to ID. Okay. Or sorry, let's go back to save comment now. And let's actually make this a pretty component. All right. So I'm going to remove all of this here. Okay. So we're going to have a div, and the div is going to have a very simple styling here. So we'll say class name and text small. So it's just going to have small text. I'll say comment as, and we'll put an empty space here. Okay. Comment as, and then we'll have a span tag, and we'll make this gray or some color here, 4296CA. And we're gonna say if the current user, get the current user's full name here. Okay. And this is just optional chaining, so our app doesn't crash just in case we don't have access to our current user. Remember, whenever this error happens, go back to the home page and then simply go down and click the user. Okay. So not a big deal if that happens. Okay. So go ahead, home page, and then go from there. Okay. So now we're getting this error that says current user is not defined. So that's not a problem. We just have to get access to the current user. Okay. So how we're going to get access to the current user is we can actually get it from our context. So let's go ahead here. We're going to say const, and we'll just get access to our current user. We don't need his loading. Okay. So let's go ahead and import this guy as well. So our current user, we need to import context, right? So let's go ahead and import context. We have access to it. We need to import use state and use context from React. So let's get those because we need to get this use context here, right? Now we'll have access to current user. That's not a problem. Let's simply go back again to our home page. Then I'll go back to that specific post and click it, and we should be able to see our current user. So let's go ahead, refresh. Okay, there we go. So now we can actually see our current user full name, right? So we're able to actually get access to that thanks to medium context. Now let's go ahead. We're going to need to keep track of a certain state, which is going to be our input state. So let's go right there. And in order to keep track of it, obviously we're going to need to go inside of our text. We need to have a text area for this so we can actually show the text. So let's create our text area. So let's go down inside of our text small, and then we're going to create a wrapper first. Actually, let's go ahead and create a wrapper for this entire div, and yeah, let's wrap it in that. Okay, let's go ahead and style that, and I'll say class name, and we'll say style.wrapper. Okay, and then we'll create style, const style is equal to, and then for wrapper, this is the styling that we're going to do here. I just want to speed it up a little bit, guys, honestly, because it's quite a long tutorial, right? So I want to just fly through the styling because there's nothing new at this point, but we just need to put the finishing touches so we can get this app rock solid. Okay, now let's go ahead and style this wrapper. So we have this style. So you can see it says comment as Rafikazi, and it looks really clean. And then we're going to need the text area box inside of here as well. So I'm going to take that text area box and I'll explain this code to you as well, but I'm just going to speed up a little bit. So boom, let's put text area right there. This is just following what we're typing in the text input. So that's it. This is giving it a style. We're setting the columns and rows to a certain size. And then we're just saying, hey, placeholder, what are your thoughts? This can be a self-closing component. So we can just put that slash right over here. And there you go. Okay, we have this guy. Text is white, so we can't see this. So obviously we need to style this. So let's go ahead, style input. And the input styling actually is going to be the following. So I'm going to go here. We're going to go there, paste. Okay. So input styling is going to be rounded. We're going to have borders around it. So you could see those like borders, right? There's obviously border radius action going on as well. That's why we have rounded right there. We have a color for the borders, right? So it's like not a white border, but like a grayish. We have a background color for the border as well. So that's why you see this in a grayish background, gray, dark black, whatever. And then we have padding left. And then we have small text white. Now when we write in here, we can see everything. So now it looks a lot nicer. So that's what we have for the text area that's happening. Okay. And then what we need to actually do is just go ahead and create a comment button that when you click it, actually saves the comment. So I can actually go ahead and just do save comment. Let's make sure we're importing save comment as well, so we have access to it. So let's go at the top and, oh no, actually we're in the save comment file. So obviously we have access to it, right? So on click. So save comment, guys, is going to be a database function that we're going to have here. Okay. And so let's go ahead and create that. And I'll just walk you through what it does here. So again, nothing new. So that's why I'm just going through this faster. So we don't need to care about loading. Nobody cares. Okay. You could have loading here, but you honestly don't really need to. Okay. And what this does is it will go into the comments database. It will insert the comment based on the author, the text, the post ID, and the user email. And then we'll set the input to empty once we're done. So that's what this function does. And then we run this function when you actually click the comment button. So let's go back to our home page here. And then let's go to build medium with TypeScript. We can see all the comments related to it. We can see the comment button. Let's go ahead and style this because it doesn't look very pleasant right now. So let's go ahead and style comment button, give it a rounded full, certain gray color. Font is bold, right? So there we go. Now comment looks better. And let's just say, yo, does this work? Okay, let's go hit comment and then let's see if something happens. So I'm going to go ahead and try to refresh this page and fingers crossed. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, then all good. We'll see if we can make it work. Okay, so let's go back to our home page. And then once we're on our home page, let's click build medium with TypeScript. Okay, so that did not actually work and add our comment. So let's see what went wrong here. Okay, so save comment, input, set input. Okay, we have our current user. Let's go there. So on click, we're going to run the save comment function. That's interesting. Let's go take a look at our database. Let's see if there was any comments added. Okay, no comments were added, interestingly enough. So let's just walk through the logic of this. I have my post ID from the route. I pass my post ID in to my comments. I have a table called comments, so that's good. I'm inserting the author name, the author full name. The text is the input that I'm typing in here. So what's actually happening? Let's just go ahead and inspect and see if it's giving us, see if we're getting any errors here. So let's go ahead and write test, write comment. It looks like we're getting some errors. It says Supabase is not defined. So I need to actually import Supabase. Okay, so there we go, Supabase. Let's try it now. Okay, let's go ahead and say, does this work? And let's go ahead and comment. That looked a lot more like it actually. Let's refresh. Yes! The comment came in. Does this work? Okay. Let's go ahead to the home page again. Let's come back to this and let's now add test and let's go comment. Okay. And then let's go in our Supabase. Let's refresh and see if test came through. All right. So apparently post ID is blank. So it doesn't yet know what the post ID actually is. So let's see why that is happening and why it doesn't know about the post ID. So I will console log here and we'll console log post ID. Okay. And then let's go to the home page. Let's go here and let's see if post ID it says is undefined. Interesting. So we need to probably pass it the post ID. So let's go here and we'll say post ID selected post.id. So let's just make sure we're passing save comment that from our id.js. Okay, let's go ahead and say now the post ID is 2. Very good. Let's say test. Let's add the comment. Actually, let's say cookie eater and let's add the comment. Nice. Look at that, you guys. If I go back to my database and refresh this, you'll see that I have cookie eater. Post ID is actually 2 and it's showing up. How beautiful is that? So we can go to another post here. I can say hi. Let's hit comment and look at that. It's showing up. Wow. Let's hit it. There we go. Guys, this was absolutely phenomenal. If you've made it this far, you're an absolute champ. I just want to say that I appreciate you and your beautiful face so much. Make sure to smash that like button so this video goes out to everybody. And I'll leave it to you as a challenge to see if you could add the upvote and downvote functionality. And yeah, see if you can actually make that work. Okay, that's going to be a challenge for you. And that'll let you take your game up to the next level. But all of the concepts have been explained. Everything and how it works has been already explained. So I will turn that over to you. With that said, I love your beautiful face. Thank you so much for watching and following along. As always, I love your beautiful face. This is Kazi, and I'll see you in the next video.